Welcome back to Namaste React. This is episode 11, Data is the New Oil. And as we are moving ahead in this web series, right, the things are getting more complicated, things are getting more complex, and this is fun to learn React like this. Right? So now in this episode, we will talk a lot about how to manage data inside your React application, and don't get distracted. With your full concentration, watch this whole episode because you are going to learn a lot of cool things in this episode. So please pay attention and let's just begin. Let us now learn about an important concept in React which is known as higher order components. Okay, so let's see code examples and see what is a higher order components. Why do we need it? Where do we use it? And how do we use it? Okay, so let's just dive deep in. First of all, let me just take my project and open up it in VS Code, right? Here is our project and here is our VS Code. Let me just go to VS Code. Let me just start this project. How will I start this project? Exactly like npm start, right? So we have this project. I have npm start. So here is the project running on localhost 1234. Let me go back to the browser and see it once. Let me refresh the page. Cool. Here we were in our app. Okay, so this was our app we were building. Now let me tell you what is higher order component. Okay, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about its theory and then we will try to implement it, right? So listen to me very carefully. Higher order component is a function that takes a component and returns a component. Got it? Let me repeat it once again. Higher order component is a function that takes a component and returns a component. Takes a component inside and returns a component. Okay, that is a higher order component, right? It's at the end of the day, it's just a normal JavaScript function. Got it? So why do we use it? When do we use it? And what component does it take and what component it returns, right? So this is the basic question, but let me tell you what is the theory behind it, right? So higher order components basically takes a component as an input and then it enhances that component, right? It adds some extra features to that component and returns it back, right? It acts like a a enhancer kind of function, right? It takes an existing component that is an existing component and just enhances it. It just modifies that component, it tweaks it a little and then returns it back. That is known as a higher order component, right? So now we are going to write a higher order components and I'll show you all the code examples, but we will learn it through our project, right? We will develop a feature that will be using a higher order components and then it will be very much clear to you, right? So first of all, what feature are we going to develop is, let me just show it to you. Let me go back to swiggy.com, right? To just show you what we are trying to build. In this swiggy.com, if you'll clearly see, right? I am in Bangalore, right? So in this over here in Bangalore, there are 1807 restaurant. But if you'll see out of these 1807 restaurant, some of these restaurants are promoted, right? So if you'll see Kannur Food Point over here, it's a promoted restaurant, right? Swiggy is kind of promoting it. Call Me Chow is also a promoted restaurant, right? There are multiple promoted restaurants like Beijing Bites, right? So these are promoted restaurants. If you will see it clearly, their cards are, see, the card of Kannur Food Point is very similar to Biryani Pot, isn't it? Their cards look very similar, right? The only difference between the card of these two is this promoted label on the top. Okay, so what we are going to do is, we are going to create this feature of this promoted label on your restaurant cards. Got it? This is the feature. Now, if you'll see it clearly, let me tell you what we are going to write code for. So what we will do, we will take our existing card, right? We have already built this card, right? We have already built this card. But according to the data, what we will do is, we will just take this card, we will write a higher order component, right? We'll write a function that will take this card and it will spit out a new card that will have a promoted label on top of it. That function that will do our job is known as higher order component. Got it? So higher order component, let me recap it once again, the theory part. Higher order component is a function that takes a component and then enhances that component and it returns back. Right? Returns back a new component, right? So this is a higher order component. So let's just build this promoted feature, right? First of all, let us go back to our app and try to figure out where will I get this data from, right? How will I get to know which restaurant is promoted and which restaurant is not, right? So let me go to our body component first of all, right? This is the body component that is being loaded over here, right? And let us try to see if we get the data of promoted or not promoted inside our app or not, right? So if I go to my body component, and so let's just print this, right? Let me just print this list of restaurant first of all, right? Let me just print the list of restaurant, the restaurant that we are going to, that we are showing it up on the UI, right? Let me just press that list of restaurant. If I go to console log, so these are 15 restaurant on our page, right? So if I go to each restaurant, right? If I go to each restaurant and see its data, so you will see clearly there is a promoted label, right? A promoted variable which we are getting inside data, right? Are you able to see it, right? I have made it a little bigger, right? So in this data for each restaurant, we have a promoted variable, right? It gives us the information whether the restaurant is promoted or not. See, promoted is true for Kannur Food Point, right? If we check some other restaurant, right? Let us check some other restaurant. Let us check the second restaurant. The second restaurant is what? The second restaurant is in Maruti Nagar. What is the name of this restaurant? Biryani Pot. What is it? Name. LMN. Name. It's Biryani Pot, right? So this restaurant is Biryani Pot. And if you see promoted is false. So basically we have this data already with us. If that promoted flag is true, that means you have to show a promoted label on the top of the card. Otherwise, you don't have to show a promoted label on the top of the card. Got it? According to the data over here. So now what we are basically going to do is we are rendering our restaurant over here, right? This is how we are rendering our restaurant. Got it? Over here, this is the restaurant card and we are passing the data of the restaurant over here. Now, if the restaurant, here we will have to write some logic, right? Here we will have to write some logic. If the restaurant is promoted, right? Promoted, then add a promoted label to it. Promoted label to it, right? Label to it. Got it? So now, first of all, let me create a higher order function that will give us a card with a promoted label. Got it? So let me just show it to you how we can make a higher order component. Right? So let me go to restaurant card. So this is a basic restaurant card, right? If you will see, this restaurant card is the basic restaurant card that we are using, isn't it? Right? This is the restaurant card. Now we want another restaurant card that is an enhanced version of this restaurant card, right? But it has a promoted label on top of it, right? So for that, we will create a higher order component. So now I will create a higher order component, right? Which will take this restaurant card as an input and it will return me a new component which is a enhanced restaurant card, right? When I say enhanced restaurant card, that means restaurant card with promoted label, right? So if I have to give you the contract of this higher order component, it takes input is the restaurant card, right? Restaurant card, right? And the output, right? What will this function return? The output of this restaurant card, output will be restaurant card promoted, right? So basically the input of the higher order component will be restaurant card and it will return us a new component that is a promoted restaurant card, right? Kind of like a restaurant card promoted. Got it? How do we write it? As I said, higher order component is nothing but a normal JavaScript function, isn't it? And let me name this component or this this function, right? This higher order function as with promoted label. Okay, let's call it at with promoted label, right? So this function, this higher order component is a function which takes in what? Restaurant card, right? So basically I will take restaurant card as the input, right? And what will this function return, right? Let us first of all define the contract. It will return, right? It will return another component, right? How do you return a component? How do you return a component? So a component is just a function again, right? So it will return another component inside it. So basically, this is a new component that I am returning. Listen to me very, very carefully, right? Very, very carefully. I'm recapping it once again. It is a little confusing, but you have to pay attention. With promoted label is a higher order component. It's a function. It is taking restaurant card as the input. This restaurant card is the same. This restaurant card, right? It is taking this as an input. Now it will return a new component. Right? It will return a new component, but this time it will have a promoted label on top of it. Right? This component will have a promoted label on top of it. Got it? So this is the restaurant card. So basically, a component is a function which returns some piece of JSX, isn't it? So this function, this component will again return some JSX, right? Return JSX. So this JSX is basically a enhanced component, right? So this is a component. It will have a label, right? It will have a promoted label inside it, right? Let's call it as promoted. And it will have restaurant card with it, right? Restaurant card with it. Got it? So basically, now does it make sense? So what we are doing over here is, let me just recap it once again. This is a higher order component. It takes restaurant card as an input and it returns back a function. See this, it returns a function. It returns a component basically, right? And a component is a function that returns some piece of JSX, right? It's a function, right? It's a functional component. This part of the code, right? See this part of the code. This is a functional component, right? It is returning a component, and this component is a enhanced version of this restaurant card, right? It is adding a promoted label to it. Now let me export this, right? Let me export this, right? Let me export this higher order component, and now things will make sense when we will use this. We will use this, right? Then it will make a lot of sense. For now, just see what am I doing, right? I am just adding this label promoted over my restaurant card, right? Basically, this is the promoted label over here, right? I have added this promoted label. Now, what I will do is, let us just try to use our higher order component. This higher order component will generate a restaurant card for us, right? So over here, what we will do is, we will now, when we are going to render over here, right? So according to the promoted label, we are going to render all the restaurant card. But if the restaurant is promoted, we will render this promoted card, right? This promoted card. So how do we use it? First of all, let me just import this. Import our, okay, so import already from restaurant card, right? Let me just name import that, right? With promoted label. So I have imported this with promoted label. Now I will create a restaurant card component which has a promoted label in it. How will I create it? Right? So I will create it something like this. Constant restaurant card promoted, right? Is with promoted label and a restaurant card. Does this make sense to you? Right? So now what will happen is, listen to me very carefully. This with promoted label is a higher order component. We have passed in this restaurant card, right? We have passed in this restaurant card in it, right? It will return us a new component which has a label inside it, right? So basically this component is now has a promoted label inside it, right? And what we are going to do is, now over here, if the restaurant.data.promoted is true, I will render my that restaurant promoted card instead of this card, right? So let us write that logic. So over here, we will write this logic, right? If my restaurant.data.promoted, right? Data.promoted is equal to, right? Or maybe if it is true, right? If it is true, I am writing a ternary operator over here. If my restaurant is promoted, then use that use this, right? Use this component, use this new component, right? Which we have generated. So now if the restaurant is promoted, so use this component, otherwise use the normal component. This is our normal restaurant card component. This is our enhanced restaurant card component, right? So we will use restaurant card promoted if my restaurant is promoted, right? So I will use this, right? And otherwise we will use this. Got it? I am just using a ternary operator. Now the problem is that this restaurant card promoted will also need this res data, right? It will also need this res data, right? Over here we have to pass our res data inside it, right? Let me get rid of this syntax. Let me get rid of this comment, right? It is just bugging us, I guess. Cool. So let me show it to you this code once again, right? If the restaurant.data.promoted is true, if that restaurant is promoted, then use this, right? Now this will make sense. Now everything is making sense to you, isn't it? Just read this portion of code. If my restaurant.data.promoted is true, right? If the restaurant is promoted, use this new component or the enhanced component, right? And where is this enhanced component coming from? It is coming from with promoted label and restaurant card. Got it? This is coming from with promoted label, right? And where is this promoted label? Let me show you the code. Here is this with promoted label. But if you'll see it clearly, here we are passing props to it, right? Here we are passing props to it. So I'll have to read this props also, right? I'll have to read this props also. So I'll go back over here. So basically, so I'll have to ask you one question, right? I'll have to ask you very basic question. When I am passing this props over here to this new component, where will I receive these props, right? If I'll pass this res data over here, where will I receive it over here? So basically we will receive it over here, isn't it? When we called this with promoted label, right? When we call this with promoted label, what does it return? It returns to us this component. Right? When we call this with promoted label, it returns to us what? This component. Now we are passing this props to this component, right? So we will receive our props over here, right? This res data will come over here in the props. And now with that res data, now we have this restaurant data, right? We will have to pass the same data to our restaurant card. Does that make sense to you now? Right? Because we will have to pass in that data, right? So if I'll write this ... ternary spread operator, so it will pass all the props that I receive, right? Over here, all the props that I will receive, it will just directly pass in to our restaurant card. Why we are doing this? When we write higher order components, these higher order components are pure functions. What do you mean by pure function? Pure function means that it will not change any of its. See, I am passing restaurant card inside this higher order component, right? Inside this function. So I will not modify the code of restaurant card. I will not change the behavior of this restaurant card in any way. What I am doing is I am just taking restaurant card as an input and I am using it exactly how we use restaurant card, right? I am not changing anything inside restaurant card, right? I am not modifying the restaurant card components features, right? It is exactly the same. I am just adding something on top of it. I am just enhancing it. So higher order components are used to enhance the components, right? Maybe it's UI, maybe it's passing some extra props, right? Maybe passing some extra props or something, right? But I will not modify this restaurant card directly. Got it? I will not change the restaurant card's components, code or something. Got it? So this is our higher order component. Now let us just see in action, right? If I'll go back, if I'll see, do you see this? If I refresh my page, do you see this? We have a promoted label on these cards. This Roti Wala is promoted. This Call Me Chow is promoted. Do you see this promoted label? we have got the promoted label already on our app, right? See this is promoted. It is not looking very good, right? Let us add some CSS, right? Let us add some tailwind to it, right? To make it look more better. How can I add it? Let me just overlap it. Try to make it as similar to Swiggy, right? Let's make it like this. Overlap it, right? How do you overlap it? Let me just give it some class name. Let me just give it, to make it overlap, let's give it some property absolute, right? Absolute, right? Let's give it the class absolute, and maybe let's make it black in color, right? Let's make the background as black, and let's make the text as white, right? Let's make the text as white, text white. Got it? So now I have this promoted label. Let me go back. See this, right? We have got this promoted label with us in our cards, right? Let me just give it some margin padding so that it looks more better, and some rounding corners or something like that, right? Let me give it margin of maybe 2, and then padding of 2, and then maybe rounded corner, rounded LG or something, right? Rounded LG. Got it? So we have written some CSS. I have made it black background, white text, margin 2, margin of 8px, padding of 8px, rounded corners, right? I have made the corners as rounded. See this. It looks good, right? It looks exactly like Swiggy, isn't it? Isn't it? It looks like Swiggy, right? So if I go to Swiggy, refresh my page, see this, right? So we have this rotiwala.com promoted. We have this Call Me Chow promoted. Go to our app. We have this Rotiwala promoted. We have this Call Me Chow promoted. Looks cool, isn't it? So this is what is higher order components, and this is how you write a higher order component, right? And this higher order components at the end of the day are just functions. They just take a component and they just returns another component outside, right? And that component is an enhanced version of the input component. That's all is our higher order components. And we use these higher order components, right, for similar reasons, right? We pass in some component and we just enhance it and just give it back, right? That is the major use of higher order components. Got it? So this is what it is. I wanted you to show this. I wanted you to write this. This is a very important interview question also. Hope you would have understood it. Now, let us just take a break. This was all about higher order components, and we will learn a lot of exciting things. So go back, take a break, implement this higher order components in your code, and come back very fast, because we are going to learn a lot of amazing cool things. Hope you would have understood higher order components. See you back very soon. Welcome back, my dear friends. Now we will make some more features of our app, and we will learn more new concepts inside React, right? In this portion, I am going to teach you what is controlled and uncontrolled components. I am going to teach you another important thing, which is known as lifting the state up. These are important core things inside React, and all related to data of our React application. Let me give you some more information about React applications. An important part of a React application is to manage its data, right? Let me tell you an important thing, that React application or any UI application, UI is very static, right? UI does not have its logic of its own, right? UI is very static. You give some JSX, it just be on that page, right? It is like that, right? UI is a different part, and the data is a different part inside React application. And data layer is very important. So basically, if I have to tell you in a important way, right? In a very generic way, so I would say that all the React applications have two layers, right? Two important layers. One layer is the UI layer, another one is the data layer. And this UI layer is powered by data layer, right? UI layer is powered by data layer. Got it? So basically, this data layer consists of your state, your props, your local variables. Whatever data you have in your application is the data layer. And this UI layer is powered by this data layer. This data layer is very important. If you know how to manage your data correctly in your React applications, your applications will be super fast. Your applications will be very performant, right? It's very important. The major part is to handle this data layer, right? So basically when I say UI layer, it is mostly consisting of what? JSX. The code you write inside JSX, right? That is the UI layer. And the data layer is your state, your props, your local variables, your that curly braces inside your JSX, right? That JavaScript code that you write is all modifying the data layer, right? So this is what is UI layer and a data layer. Now, whatever we are going to do in this episode, we are talking majorly about data layer, right? We are going to see how we can properly manage our data layer. How do we manage data properly in our app? This is what we are learning in this whole episode, right? This is why it is data is the new oil, right? If you'll know how to manage data properly, you will be able to make super amazing React applications, right? So this is what is a difference between a junior engineer and a senior engineer. Senior engineers are very good at their logic of data layer, right? So you have to be very good at your data layer. Got it? So now let us just build a feature and then we will learn new concepts while we are building this feature, right? So what feature are we going to build now is, so if I go to a restaurant menu, right? If I go to a restaurant menu, if I click on a restaurant, right? Let's click on this Roti Wala. So we have this restaurant menu on the table, right? We have this restaurant menu on the page. So here is the piece of information about restaurant. And then we have separate sections, right? We have a recommended section. We have a newly added section. We have a lassi, shakes and smoothie section. So similarly, we have different sections. And in these sections, we have some items, right? We have these items, chicken meal, egg curry, and whatsoever, right? These are 4 recommended items. There are 9 newly added items, right? So similarly, we have these items inside our sections. Got it? So we are going to build a similar kind of thing inside our application, right? Right now, if I go to my Roti Wala page, it looks very ugly, right? And it is just showing me few items, right? I think it is just showing me recommended items. See, chicken meal, egg curry, egg noodles, right? I think this is just showing me these 4 items inside recommended. Now, let us try to build this full page. Right? Let's try to build this full page, and while building this, we will learn amazing new React concepts. That is why Namaste React is a project-based learning. Everything I'm going to show you will be related to our project and how do we use these concepts in our project, right? You will learn it very better. Right? So you understood this feature. Let's just build it and listen to me very carefully when I'm teaching you, because this is a very important concept. Okay. First of all, let us figure out where will I get data of these, right? Of these sections, right? How will I get the data of these sections, right? So this is our restaurant menu page, right? So let's go to restaurant menu page and see where our data was, right? So we have this data. Okay. So we had this chicken meal and all these things printed. Where was the code? Yes, we had these item cards and we were mapping over it, right? We were mapping over this item cards, right? And this was the list item which is getting printed over here, isn't it? This is what it was. Cool, I got it. But I want information about all the sections, right? This is just showing one section. This is just showing recommended section, right? This is just showing recommended section. I want all the sections. So I'll have to move one more level above the data, right? So this is the items card, right? I think, see, the recommended is coming from over here, right? I think recommended is coming over here. So let me just print this cards and see what is the data inside it, right? Let me just print this and see what is data inside this cards, right? So if I go back, refresh my page, check my console log, right? If I check my console log, so there are different cards, right? So let us just see what data are we getting over here, right? So if I'll see this card is basically menu wedge filter badge, right? Menu wedge filter badge, right? It is so this menu badge filter badge is basically this, right? Wedge only option, right? This is wedge only, right? This is it doing, right? I am not concerned about this. I am not building this wedge only filter. So I am not building a wedge only feature over here. Okay. Let's move to another card. If I'll see this card, this is an item category. See this. So this is the item category and there are recommended, title is recommended, and these are 4 cards. Right? These are item cards. So basically this is a section, right? This card is a section. The title is recommended, and there are 4 items inside recommended section, right? So we have this recommended, we have 4 items inside it. So here is the data. Where is the second? See this. This is the second card, right? This is the second card, newly added, right? We had newly added over here, newly added and 9, right? So newly added and it has 9 item cards. Cool. So this is where we will get data from, right? So what we will do is, first of all, and there are overall how many? 23 cards, right? But we are not concerned about all the cards. Why? Because see, some cards are showing our restaurant address, right? This card is showing restaurant address, right? This is the restaurant address. There must be some restaurant address over here, right? Where is our restaurant address? Okay. It's a long page. Oh my god, what is this? Yep, this is our restaurant address, right? So we are not concerned about this restaurant address. We are not concerned about this first card, veg only card. Where is it? We are not concerned about this card. We are only concerned about the sections, right? We are only concerned about these sections. How will we get data of it? So if you'll see clearly, in all these cards, we have this @ type. And this type is a item category over here, right? This item category. And if I see the second card, it is again an item category, which is newly added. So what I'll do is, in whole data, right? In our whole data, I will just filter out all the item category. So it will give me all the sections, all the data of these sections, right? All these, basically not sections, let's call it as category, right? This is a item category. This is a category. Okay. So let's call this category. So I want data of only item categories. Okay. Oh my God. It's getting confusing. Is it getting complicated in your head? Let me just recap it once again. So what and why I am telling you all this. So see, important thing is to find out the actual correct data that we want to render on the page, right? So I am trying to find out the data of all the categories, and I am not concerned about this veg only for now, right? So what I am trying to do is, out of this 24 cards, I am filtering out all the item category, right? I am filtering out all the item category, right? So how do I filter out? So let me write a array.filter method, right? So basically these are the cards. I want to find out all the categories, right? How do I find out categories? Right? So I'll do categories, right? How to find out categories? I want to filter these cards, right? Let me just grab this data, right? And I want to do a dot filter on top of it, right? Dot filter. If you don't know how to write a filter method, go back and check out map filter reduce video on my channel, right? On YouTube for free. You will get to know what this filter is, right? Why we are using this filter. Basically, we are trying to filter all the cards inside it which has a @ type of item category, right? So if you don't know much about this filter function, go and check out my YouTube video. Okay. For now, I'm just writing it, right? I want to filter out all the category. For each category, just filter out all the category where we have see this, right? So where we have a c.category.card.card.@type equal to this, right? So basically I am trying to find out I am trying to filter out all the cards which has a @ type of this, right? How do I write that code? I want to filter from each category. Give me all the categories where have a c.card, right? .card and @type, right? Card.card.@type. See this card.card.@type as item category, right? So now I cannot write like this, right? Right? I cannot write like this because there is a @. I don't know why they have put this @ over here, right? Because @ is not a valid JavaScript, right? You cannot name name a property, right? Like this @type. But if you have a property which is not a variable inside JavaScript, there is a hack to it, right? You can wrap it inside a square bracket, right? So it is exactly right writing like this, right? So you can write it like this. You know this, right? If you don't know this, just see why I am doing like this, right? Find out, right? In JavaScript, instead of doing this, I can also write like this, right? Instead of doing this, I can also write it like this, right? If you don't know, this is not something new in React. This is just JavaScript, right? So basically, if I have to find this card, I can do a dot card, or I can also do something like this, right? This is also a valid code, right? This is also a valid code. This is exactly same as doing card dot card. Over here, because we have this at the rate, right? That is why I cannot directly write at the rate type over here, right? This will throw an error, right? If you will see the error, let me show it to you. It will say that identifier expected, right? So this at the rate, JavaScript does not recognize it, right? So we have to do it something like this, right? So basically now what we are filtering for each category. If your card dot card at the rate type is equal to this, right? Is equal to this item category. So filter me all these cards, right? Give me all the data of it, right? Is equal to this, right? This string. So let me just show you this code once again, right? Let me just show you this code once again. What function we have written. Just see this code once again. So from all the cards, I am filtering each card where the category, right? This is the category. For each category, if the category dot card dot type is equal to this, give me all these categories, right? If I'll console log it, now let me just console log my categories, right? If I'll console log my categories, see what we get, right? Now I will get all the filtered data, right? I have got 20 categories, right? I have got 20 categories. See this. I have got all these item categories, right? It does not have that. It does not have an address. It does not have this wedge only and all that other extra cards that we don't need, right? I'm not building those features, so I don't need it for now. Okay, so I am just filtering my item categories. Now, in this item categories, I have got this, right? There is a title involved in it. Now, let us just build this type of UI, right? Let us just build this type of UI. You know what does this type of UI known as? What is this? This is basically an accordion, right? This is known as an accordion, where you can like expand it and collapse it, right? This is known as accordion. For people who don't know, this is a accordion, right? Accordion. Got it? So if you'll see the accordion, right? Let me go to maybe Bootstrap, right? And if you'll see this accordion, this is known as an accordion, right? See this. This is known as accordion, right? This is an accordion. Got it? So in accordion, there are two things. One is accordion header, right? This is the accordion header, and this is accordion data, right? This is accordion header. This is accordion data. So if you'll click on this, it hides and shows the accordion body, right? This is accordion body. This is accordion header, right? So over here in our app, what I want to do in our accordion header, right? In our accordion header, we have to print this title, right? And if I click on it, I have to show this accordion body. I have to show all the items inside it. So let's just see how we can build this, right? How we will build it. We have got the data now. Now, first of all, let's refactor it, right? It's looking very ugly over here, right? Let's write it from scratch, right? So we have this. Let me just remove it all, right? So we have this restaurant name. Let's just make this name a little more beautiful, right? Let me refresh the page. Let's make it look better, right? Now we have Tailwind with us. We can write it better. Please pay attention, right? While I do this, I am trying to make it look beautiful also, okay? Help me with the CSS. I am very bad at CSS, right? I have removed, right? Save it, right? If I'll do, yep, we have this, right? Let's bring it in the middle, right? Let's center align all this, right? I think this, we can do a center line of it. So how do we center align? I don't need this class name anymore. I'll just do a text center, right? I think text center. Got it, right? So we have this text center. It will make everything as text center. Let me just make it a little bold, right? This is restaurant name. Come on. Our restaurant name should be bold and bigger, right? Bold and bigger. And these are cuisines. And this is cost of 2 people, right? So let's enhance it a lot, right? So let me add some class name. Let's make it bold. How do we make it bold? So how do we make it bold in Tailwind? Give me some suggestions. BOLD. How do we write it bold? Right? Class name. I think it's font bold, right? If I write font -bold, it will make it bold. Yep. So we have this bold, right? Now let's give it some margin padding. So I want a margin on the top and bottom, right? Let's give it margin on the top and bottom. It's sticking a lot, right? Let's give it margin of, maybe margin on y-axis of, let's give it maybe 10, right? Or something, right? Let's give it 10 and see. Yep. So we have this. This looks better, right? And let's make it text size as large, right? Or maybe let's make the text size as extra large, 2XL, right? Let's make the text as 2XL, right? Cool. So we have our restaurant name, which is a little bigger and better, right? Let me reduce some margin, right? It's looking a very off, right? Let's give it 6 or something, right? Let's give it 6. Cool. So we have this, right? Now we have our this, right? Let's make this also a little bold, right? We have this cuisines over here. Let's make it a bold, this p tag. Let's make this data also bold, font hyphen bold, right? And let's make a text also bigger. Let's make it text LG or something, right? Cool. So we have our Roti Wala restaurant. We have these cuisines. Now over here below, now we will build those categories, right? Now let us build these categories. How do we build it? Let's just try to build the accordion from scratch, right? Below this, we will have our categories, right? So if you'll see it clearly, here we need categories accordion, right? Accordions, right? So basically this is the accordions, and each accordion has a header and a title, right? Basically a title, a header, and then a body, which is collapsible, isn't it? So similarly, let's try to build that, right? So now what we will do, we will build, so basically what we will do, we will just loop onto all categories, right? We will do a categories.map, and for each category, we will build an accordion, right? We will build this one section, right, of this accordion. This is basically an accordion item, right? So see, this whole thing is known as accordion. This is an accordion item, right? So for each category, I will build this accordion item. Let's call this as restaurant category, right? So for each category, we have to build this accordion item, right? So for each category, I'll have to build a accordion, right? A section, right? So let's try to build that, right? First of all, before we even map over this, first let's try to build this one accordion item, okay? And let's create a new component for it, right? And let's call it as maybe restaurant category, right? Restaurant, or maybe let's give it a name, rest category, right? To, like, it's easy, right? But in your real world application, always use full names, right? So that nobody is confused. I'm just being a little lazy over here. Or maybe let's use full name, right? I don't want you to get a habit of writing shortcuts. Restaurant categories, okay? Or maybe category, right? I am building it for one. Restaurant category.js, right? Over here, right? What is a functional component? It's, at the end of the day, it's a normal JavaScript function, isn't it? Restaurant category, right? Category, right? One category. Now this function, right, is an arrow function, normal JavaScript arrow function, our component, right? And it just takes in some props, right? We will pass in some props and return some piece of JSX, right? This JSX is basically that accordion item, right? Which is collapsible, expandable kind of thing, right? So over here, what is there? We will have a header section and we will have a body section over here, right? And we will have a accordion body, right? If I'll see, we will have a accordion body over here, right? Accordion body and accordion header, right? So we'll have an accordion header, we will have an accordion body, right? So this is our rest category. For now, let me just give it like dummy data, right? Rest category, and let's see if it is coming on the UI or not, right? Rest category, right? This is a rest category, and let me just export it. I'm just testing this component. Where is my cursor, right? Export default, and then restaurant category. Got it? So now we have this. I want I want where is my restaurant menu? Right, here is it. I want this restaurant category map to each restaurant category, right? Basically, I want to map my all the categories, and for each category, right? For each category, return, right? Return a restaurant category, right? Got it? So for each restaurant, I want a restaurant category, and I have to import this restaurant category from my .restaurant category. Got it? Let me repeat it once again. We have got this categories already over here. For each categories, I want that accordion, right? That accordion item. Got it? We want this restaurant, and we will build this slowly, right? We will build this restaurant category item, and I have mapped over it. So what I should see in the UI, I should see 20 different res category, right? 20 different res category, right? So on the UI, cool. So I have this 20 different res category. Let's try to build it. Let's fix all these errors, right? We have a key property error. We have used map without a key. So let's fix all that, right? So if I'll see the data, right? Over here, I have this card.card. For each category, let's build a title, right? Let's get this title recommended over here, right? Let's get this title recommended. Let's try to make the UI like this, right? Okay. We have Tailwind, the power of Tailwind with us. Let's try to make a UI like this. Okay. I won't compromise on the UI now. We are a UI ninja with Tailwind, isn't it? Let's try to build this. So let's try to build a header for each category. First of all, let's find out where we will get data from here, right? Let's try to get data over here, right? Let's try to get data. So if I'll see, let me pass in for each category, let me pass in a props, which is known as basically, what data will we get? Card data, right? Let's call it as data, right? Let's call it as data. Data will be category .card.card, right? .card.card, right? This is the data that we need. So let's pass in category .card.card, right? So we have this, right? Let me give it an optional chaining, so that this does not throw an error. Cool. So we have got this data.card.card, right? Over here, let me just remove a console log from here, and let me just log it over here to show what data are we getting over here, right? So, why do I keep on doing console logs and showing it to you, right? Why do I do that, right? Because, when you will code, right? When I'm teaching, right? I know that I am passing data from here, so I will receive over here as a prop. But I do a console log and show it to you so that you are like in your head, it is clear that, okay, I have passed in props over here. It is coming over here. That's why, to just make my teaching more better, right? Otherwise you would be thinking, I don't need this console log actually, right? But I do this for you, right? So that when you are learning, it is easy, right? And when you are writing code initially, right? When you are writing code for the first time, try to put console logs. It will help you. You will know what is the data at what point, right? You can do the same by putting debuggers in your app also, but I am just putting in console logs so that you know exactly where am I logging, right? It's just a little better, right? While teaching, it's a better. While developing, sometimes it's better to put a debugger inside your elements, right? Hope you know how to put a debugger. If don't, just try to learn it, or else you can put console logs, right? So let us see. I am just showing it to you that we got data or not. How do we get data over here? From the props like this, right? Let's see what data did we get over here, right? Let me go back. See, we have got 20 objects. So for each object, I have the title with us. So let's try to use this title and create an accordion header, right? So first of all, let me create this accordion header, and then we will create body later on. Okay, so let's create this accordion header. How do we create an accordion header? Let's create a div. For each header, I will have my title, right? I will have this title, and I will have this arrow, right? I will have this title recommended, and I will have this arrow, right? So let's build it in our app. And put it some CSS, right? Let's build this, right? So basically a title is a span, right? Let's give it a span. Got it? It's a span, and this span is what? Title, right? Data.title. Basically this is data.title, title, right? And right, this is one span, and the other span is that arrow, right? So let's figure out how to put arrow here, right? Let me see if I have an emoji for arrow. Down arrow, right? Down arrow. Yes, we have this down arrow, right? Either we can use it, or let's use this one, right? Let's use this emoji, right? This is cool, right? I don't know. Let's use this, right? And let's put in some CSS, right? Let's make it. Let's give it some class name. Let's give it a width first of all. Let's give it a width of what? Let's give it some width, right? I don't know. Let's give it width full. Okay, and let's give it a background of maybe gray, right? Let's give it a gray background. Let's try to make it look a little good, right? So let's give it some background. Let's give it shadow, right? I love to give shadows, right? Shadow LG. And then let's also give it some padding, right? Let's give it some padding 4, right? Let's see how it looks. Okay. Okay, this much CSS enough. I'm writing blind CSS, right? Cool. So it is, it has put some CSS, but it is not looking very good. And it is taking full space. Let's try to make it like this, right? It's not taking full space, right? Let's give it a width of, not full, but let's give it a width of half, right? Half of the page. How do we give it a width of half of the page? Do you know in Tailwind CSS? It's very easy. It's like 6 by 12. If you write W6 by 12, that means, so you know, Tailwind distributes our page into 12 sections. If you will write width of 6 by 12, it will just add 6 by 12, right? Like this. Got it? So now we have width of 6 by 12. Cool. But it is on this side, right? See this. If you'll see clearly, this is like on the left hand side. Let me make it center, right? Let me make it into center because I have fixed the width now, right? I have fixed the width. I'll have to give it margin auto, right? If I give it margin auto, it will just, cool. It has brought it in the center. Why? Because I have given margin auto. It's not taking margin from, it's taking margin auto, and the parent has the text center. So it will come in center, right? Now let's, what will say it's sticking to each other, right? Let me give it some margin on top and bottom, right? So basically this margin auto should be on the x-axis. Margin y should be some different, right? Distance, right? Margin x should be auto and margin y should be, maybe let's give it 4 or 6 or something. Let's give it 4, right? See this, cool. Now it looks better, right? Now it looks like an accordion, right? Now we can see the distinguish, like we can distinguish these, right? Cool. Otherwise they were sticking to each other. I have given some margin. Now let me bring my title on the left side and this arrow on the right side, right? That is how it is. Try to make it look like this, right? Okay, cool. Let's bring it like this, right? How would I do that? First of all, I'll have to make it like a flex and I'll have to do space between, right? So space between is justify, right? Justify space between, justify between. Cool. So justify space between. Cool. This is what we wanted. Looks cool, isn't it? Looks cool, my dear friends, isn't it? We have our accordion headers with us, right? Let's try to make it a little bold, right? Let's make this title a little bold, right? Let's give it some class name. Let's make it font bold and little text a little large, right? Let's give it text LG, text large. Okay, cool. Now it looks good, right? It looks good. Should we also put in these numbers? How many items are there inside it, right? 4, right? How do I put that? Right? How do I put that? Over here, if you'll see, we have this item cards, right? This item cards. So I have to calculate this item cards of length. It's very easy, right? In front of the title, I want to give it my, in this brackets, I want to show what? My data dot item cards of length, isn't it? Of length. If I'll do data dot item cards dot length, cool. So we have our recommended 4, new item 9, exactly like how we wanted, right over here. Cool. Tailwind is amazing, isn't it? Are you loving Tailwind or not? Write it down below in the comments. Are you liking Tailwind or not, right? Tailwind gives us, like, see, how fast it is. Otherwise, we'll have to add some classes, go back to our CSS file, write some CSS for it and all that thing, right? Now I'm writing CSS on the fly. Isn't it amazing? I just love Tailwind, it just makes my life easier, right? But we have got this accordion titles, but I want to now collapse and expand it, right? And I want to show this accordion body also, right? Accordion body. So now let us just try to build our accordion body. Let us try to build this click handlers, right? Are you ready for it? Cool. Let's try to build it, right? So this accordion body, let's create another component for it, right? Let's create another component for it. Let's call that as category or maybe item list, right? Let's call this as item list, right? This is item list basically, right? When I expand, this is item list, right? Let's call that as item list. So let me create another component for it. Let me call it as item list, right? Because it's a list of items, right? I don't know. I'm just good at naming conventions, right? What is this component? It's again, at the end of the day, what is a functional component? It's a function, normal JavaScript function that returns some piece of JSX. Hope you would have remembered it already by now. It is episode 11, my dear friends. It's episode 11. You should know all these things already, right? This is a normal JavaScript function. And let me just export default item list, right? It will take some items, right? Let's bring in some items over here and we will just iterate over them. Got it? So we will return some piece of JSX, right? We will return some piece of JSX. This is basically items, right? Category items, right? For each category, I will have some category items and I will return it, right? Let's get this items first of all. How will I get this items? Right over here, if I refresh my page, right, I will have to pass in this item cards, right? This item cards will have data of these, right? So I will have this data. So let's pass this item cards first of all, right, over here. So from our restaurant category, I want to first of all import my item cards and have this item list, right? Item list. So this item list come from /item list and I will pass in some props, which is items, right? And for items, I will pass in data.item cards. Got it? So we have got this item list over here, right? We have got this data over here. Now let me log and show it to you maybe, right? Should I log and show it to you? Right? Let me just get rid of this first of all, right? So see, for each of them, we have got this category items, but it is not coming inside, right? I want it inside of this accordion, right? I want to show it inside of this accordion. Okay. So basically I want this item list to be inside, right? Inside that component, right? Over here maybe. Cool, right? Not outside this div, right? Inside the div. Cool. So it is not coming properly. Okay, got it, right? So it has taken 3 things, right? So let me just wrap this inside a div also, right? Let me just wrap this also inside a div. Let me make it a little better. I understood what is the problem, right? Cool. No. So basically what I'm trying to do is I want to bring this category items below it, right? And I want these two to be on the top. So what I will do it, I will make it flex justify item inside, right? Got it. So this will be our flex justify item. Cool. So now it looks better, right? So we have this category items below this, right? And I will make this show expand collapse. I will do that expand collapse. First of all, let's just build it like this, right? So we have this item list, right? Let's show these items now, right? I have got this item list. So if I see the item cards, so this will have some data. So let me just remove this console log from here and let me go to item list and let's see what data are we getting over here, right? Right? I'll show it to you for each items. How does it look? Right? How does it look? See this, right? So we have got this data. So if there are 4 items, for each item we have a .card.info and the name, right? What we are going to see, we are going to print the description. Let's print in the name and let's print in cost, right? Let's print it price. What is this? 17,000. This is basically in paisa, right? We'll have to divide it by 100 to make it in rupees. Got it? So it's 170 rupees actually, right? So basically let's use this and try to build these items, right? So in each item, right? For each item, maybe let's build a ULLI, right? And list of items, right? For each item, right? Let me just iterate over it. For each item, items.map, I will return for each item, I will return basically a line item, right? Basically a line item, right? Li. And for each Li, first of all, I should have a key for this, right? I should not forget about this key. And that key would be item.name. Let's give it some item.card. What is it? Item.card, right? Item.card.info.name. Oh, we have ID also, right? So let's give it ID. So wherever you have ID, give it a ID, right? The name can be same also. Is it? Can two items have same name? I don't know. Why Roti Wala with put 2 chicken meals? Oh, it can, right? There could be 2 different chicken meals, the same name, but description is different, I guess. Okay. I don't know. I don't want to put my wrap up a lot of head inside this, right? But anyways, so we have this, right? Or maybe let's make it div, right? Not li, because I will have to show some description and all that stuff also, right? Let's make it a div. Let's make it a div, or not a div. Basically, let's remove this ULLI, right? Let's make it a div, right? Instead of this li, let's make it a div, and this div, right? And this div will basically have some structure, right? So items.card. What was the data? Let's first of all, let me give it some ID, right? Card.info.id. Okay. Card.info.id. Got it? Expected JSX closing tag. I think I messed up something over here, right? Div, and then div is closed over here. What's the issue? Let me just see this, right? Okay, I have put it in multiple lines, or is it? Cool. Now this is cool, right? So we have this div for each item. We have a key over here. Now for each item, I'll have to show a, let's try to make it like this, right? So we have a name, we have a price, and we have a description. Cool. Let's try to make it like this, right? So we have a name. Let's give it, so let's make 2 sections inside it. Let's give it a div, right? So inside this div, right? Inside this div, I will have my name and price, right? I will have either name, right? What is the name? Item.card. I am just copying it, right? Item.card.info.name, right? Cool. So I have this item.card.info.name, and what I'll do, so basically inside this div, let's make it a span, or maybe something like a span, right? Cool. Make it a span, right? One span will have my name, another span will have, right? Another span will have my price, right? Price, P-R-I-C, price. Cool, right? So I have a div which has name, which has price, and now I will have another div that will contain the description of it, right? Or maybe a p tag, right? Let's create a p tag which will have the description of this item, right? I will have the description of this item. I hope it is not confusing. Why this is not confusing? I am not doing anything fancy. It is taking me a lot of time because I am writing CSS. I am trying to make it as beautiful as possible, right? I'm just showing you that we can make things look beautiful, right? And we can code faster, right? In this whole episode, we have to build this, right? I'm just showing it to you that can we build it faster, right? We have this description. Let's go back and see, right? To our app. Cool, right? Oh my God, this is not looking ugly, but let's put some CSS and make it look better. First of all, let's just try to make it like this. Let's give it this separator also, right? Maybe let's give it border bottom or something, right? Let's give it border bottom, right? For each item. First of all, this item, right? Let's give it some CSS. We haven't given some CSS. class name of, let me give it some padding margin, right? Padding to margin of 2, right? Padding to margin 2. Let give it border bottom, right? Okay, how do you give it border bottom? Border bottom. Is it something like this? Border bottom. See, now I don't know how to give a border bottom, right? But let me just try to find out. Bottom, I don't know how to give. Okay, I think it's given like this, border and then border bottom or something, right? I don't know. Bottom 1, bottom 10. Nope. This is not how you give border bottom, right? Border and then border, maybe color is black, right? Border black or something, right? Border black. Let's try to experiment it, right? Cool. We have got this border, right? We have got this border, but I just want border in the below, right? In the bottom, right? How do we give it? Border bottom. Is it border bottom, bottom 0? I don't know, right? No. This is not the CSS which I want, right? How do you give it border bottom? Okay, so now I don't know the tailwind for this, right? See, I also get stuck. So what will I do? I'll just do a tailwind border bottom, right? Bottom. Cool. So I'll just give it border bottom. How do you give it border bottom? Okay, so border X, border Y, you can give it like this, right? Border top and border bottom, right? So I just want it border bottom. So I'll do a border B, right? Or something, right? Top, bottom, right? Border bottom and width, right? So what I'll do? Border bottom of 2, right? 2px, right? Let's give it border bottom 2. Cool. So border B of 2. Got it? So border B of 2. Save it. Cool. Let me go back. So we have border. Okay. So now we have border B2, right? Not just border, right? Cool. Right? So we have got this separator. Now I want 1px, right? It's looking very dark, right? It's looking very dark. I just want it very light. First of all, let me just make it border gray of 100 maybe, right? And now it's not even visible. Let's make it maybe 400. Cool. This is a lot bigger. Let's make it 200. Cool. This is good, right? I think we can settle for this, right? We can settle for this, and this description, right? This is the description. Let's make it text small, right? It's looking very ugly, right? Let's make this description as text XS. Is there some XS, right? Let's see. Text XS, right? So text extra small. Cool. So we have this text extra small. Let's make it left align, right? Why it is becoming center align? Let's make it left align, right? This chicken meal and all that stuff, right? So basically, I'll have to give it text left, right? Text left. Text hyphen left. Text left. Cool. So we have got text left. Now this chicken meal let's make it, how should we make it bold? Yeah, let's make it a little bold, right? And let's give it a price, right? Or maybe let's not make it bold. Let's give it some padding, right? It will look good, right? Let's give it some padding and let's make this price look better, right? Let's use this rupee symbol first of all. Let me just copy this rupee symbol. Can I copy this rupee symbol? Oh my God, I can't copy this from here. Okay, let's copy this from Google. Rupee symbol. Let's make it good, right? Let me just copy this rupee symbol, right? So over here, this price should be rupees symbol, right? Let's give it a hyphen and let's also, right? And let's also give it some padding, right? Let's give it padding of class name of P of 2, right? Let's give it some padding and let's see how it looks, right? Let's go back. Cool. So chicken meal, 17,000, right? And let's divide this by 100, right? Let's divide this by 100. So now it will be chicken meal 170 rupees, right? And let's not give it padding on x-axis. Let's just give it on the y-axis, right? Because it is looking off, right? From here, it's not aligning properly from the left. Now you must be thinking, Akshay, why are you focusing so much on CSS? Just showing you that how do you do that, right? Otherwise, this is a Namaste React. I want to show you the features and powers of React. But I'm just showing you that CSS can also be easy, right? I'm just showing you for your sake. Otherwise, I'm not interested much in CSS, right? It's something which you'll just have to practice and you'll get better at it. But let me just make it, right? So if I have to give it padding, I'm just giving it on y-axis, not on x-axis. Now see, it aligns properly, right? This looks much better, right? Chicken meal, rupees 170, right? And egg curry, rupees nan. Why? Oh my god, this is nan. Why? Egg curry is what? Let's see. Egg curry is rupees 100. Okay. So why it is showing nan? What was it earlier before dividing by 100? Right? Okay. Egg curry, the data is not coming or something? Oh my god. Egg curry does not have price? Oh my god. Does not have price? How are they showing it then? How is price coming over here and not here? It's weird, right? It is coming 100. It's not coming here. All the other prices are coming. Let's see. Let's see the egg curry. See this type of error we also get, right? So egg curry, where is the price? A, B, C, D, P. There is no price over here. Come on. Oh, default. Oh my god. Oh Swiggy. Oh my boy. Oh Swiggy boy. This is default price and they have default price and they also have a price. Are they crazy? Cool. Anyways, so do this have default price? Okay, so sometimes we have price, sometimes we have default price. You know why I love to use the live APIs? Why I'm using live APIs of Swiggy? Because see, in real world, things work like this. Such a big bug, right? I would say it's a bug. There was already a price, there is now a default price. Right? I don't know, right? Why backend is sending it like this? Maybe they would have some reason for it, but I don't know. This is like insane, right? Sometimes we are getting price, sometimes we are getting default price. How will we show, right? Maybe, okay, let's put in some condition. So if your price, okay, so let's see if the price exists, right? Let me write a condition, right? So if my price is valid, then show a price by 100 or show a, right? Not and, okay? Or show a ternary operator or show a default price by 100, right? I don't know. I did not think that I would be writing this code, but anyways, right? This is how it will be written, right? I'm just showing you how to handle all this, right? Default price by 100. Okay, so if we have info.price, then divided by 100. If we don't have price, then I'm just assuming that there will be a default price if we don't have a price. Got it? So we have this. Cool. So we have 170 egg curry. How does it look? Let me just close this. It looks much better, right? It looks much better. It looks much better. We can also show a small image also, right? Can we show it image? Do we have image data over there? I don't want to focus much upon the UI, but let's just show it, right? We are almost there. Let's just show some image also. This episode will be a little longer, but don't worry, right? I'm just trying to make it beautiful, and to make it beautiful, we might need the image, right? Show image true. Okay, so we have a show image tag also, right? And where is the image URL? Image. Where can I get image? Where is the image URL? Is there an image URL in add-ons? Do we have image add-ons? Okay, these are add-ons that you can add. But where is the image? Okay, this is the image ID. So this is the image ID and we'll have to fetch it by that Cloudinary ID. Remember we had a Cloudinary ID in our constants? Where was our constants? We had a constants, right? I remember. In utils, we have this constant.js. We have the CDN URL, right? We have this CDN URL. Cool. So let's use this CDN URL and let's show the image, right? Let's try to do it, right? Body and where is the image? Where is it? Cool. Body and maybe item list, right? Let's go back to our code. My Prettier has added this random shit, right? These are random things which Prettier or my formatter adds. Right now I want to show image also, right? How would I show image? This is interesting, right? This is interesting. Let me just show image like this, right? Let me just show image over here. Let me have a image tag, right? img tag, and let me give it src. I don't know why I'm putting so much efforts in CSS, but let's do it, right? cdn URL, right? And then this cdn URL comes from, I have to import it, right? So I have to import my cdn URL from util/constants, right? This is the cdn URL. cdn URLs plus, what is the name of that attribute? What is the name of that attribute? In info, I have this items attribute, nahi, image ID. Cool. So I am just copying this image ID, item.card.info.image ID. Got it? Item.card.info.image ID. We have our image with us, right? We have our image with us, and we'll have to give it some width, right? Let's make it class name is equals to width, right? What is the width of that image, right? Class name, let's give it a width of w is equals to, let's give it width of maybe 20 or something, 36. I don't know. How does it map? How many px? 144 px, not 144 px. Let's make it 50 px or something, right? What is 50 px? What is 50 px? Would be somewhere around 15 or something, right? Would be with hyphen. Let's see, right? What is 50 px? 50 px is 56 px. See this, w14. So this is how you'll find. Why I am showing you all this? Because you should know how to find it, right? I'll do w14. This is with 56 px, right? So let me save it and see how it looks. Cool. So we have a cool little image also over here, right? Looks cool, right? So you can align it however you want to, right? You can align it on the right hand side, right? You can add a add button also, right? You can add a add button. You can align it. Maybe let's add a add button also with it, right? So let's add a add button also. Let's make it on the side, right? It is, let's bring this image inside this container. Maybe, I don't know how it will look. Or let me try to make it, or let's just keep it like this, right? You do it for yourself, right? But you understood the gist of it, right? You understood everything, how it is, how it looks and all that stuff, right? First of all, I can have my image, then I can have all that stuff, right? So what am I trying to do is, or let me make it, right? When I am this close, let me also make it look better, right? So I'll have to wrap everything inside a div, right? And make it a div outside div, right? Make it a div outside, command Z, and make it a div here. Cool. So this is the div, this is the image, and now I'll have to put a flex here, right? Now this will be better, I guess. Cool. So we have our image over here. We have this div over here. Got it? Now the image look a little distorted. Why? My image look a little distorted. My image looks a little distorted. Why it looks a little distorted? Because I have given it width of 14, right? And height of auto, right? I think auto. Got it? Or maybe I'll have to put it inside a div, right? This is how it will be, right? I'll have to put it inside a div so that it takes a property from here, right? Cool. So I have two sections. So I have created two sections. In one section, I have image. In one section, I have put everything else, the name of the restaurant and all that stuff, right? So now I have it like this, right? It doesn't look that great, but let me increase the width of it, right? Let me increase the width of it and let me remove the height of it, right? See, CSS is tough, right? CSS is tough, right? Height of auto, let me just remove this. Cool. Let me just increase the width of it, right? Let me make it width of maybe, it's interesting, right? You know, it's boring also, but cool, right? It's like this, right? Let me put it up on, oh Lord, I have given it a fixed width of 40. Or maybe let's give it this width to div, right? Let's give this width to a div. Cool, right? Refresh my page. we have got this, right? And let me give it some padding also, right? Let me give this div some padding of 4, right? Let me give it some padding of 4. Why are these images bigger? Why are these images bigger? I don't know, right? It's width of 40. I have restricted this width, right? Width of 40. Why are these images a little big? Figure out, right? These are CSS things. Figure this out, right? Figure this out yourselves. And we can move this images on the right hand side also, right? How do you move this images on the right hand side? I'll just put it after it, right? Put it after this, right? And my images are on the right hand side, and maybe we can give a space between, right? We can give it a justify between, right? Cool. So we have chicken meal and we have this image over here, right? Try to figure out why these are small, why these are large, right? There must be some issues with the width over here, right? That we'll have to fix or something, right? You know what it is doing? It is trying to accommodate itself, right? Because the width of this div is not fixed. That is why it is creating an issue, right? Width of this div is not fixed, right? Basically what I can do, I can distribute it, right? Let me just show it to you, right? I am not escaping, right? Maybe let's make it width of 12, right? So let me distribute it like 9 by 12 and let me give it width of 3 by 12, right? How does it look? Let me just show it to you, right? See this. Cool. Now our app looks much better, isn't it? Right? Now I have given the div of this width is 9 out of 12 and this is 3 out of 12. Got it? Now it looks good. Now it looks like Swiggy, isn't it? Now it looks like Swiggy, isn't it? And I can add a add item also over here, right? Add button, which will overlay on top of it, right? Should we add it? Let's try to add that too when we are doing this, right? Let me add a button over here, button, right? Button. And let me give it a name, add plus, right? And let me add some class name also. See how much I have to struggle, right? I also struggle when I'm to write CSS, right? So let me make it some margin padding. Let me give it some padding maybe, right? Let me give it padding of maybe let's say 2. And let me give it a background color of maybe let's say white, right? Let me give it a background color of white. Let me give it some shadow, right? Shadow of LG, right? Shadow of LG. And let me also give it absolute, right? Absolute, right? Let me give it absolute. And let me also give it margin of auto, right? And let's see how it looks, right? First of all, and then we'll see. Okay, so we have this add button and it's looking a little ugly, right? It's looking a little ugly, though I have given it absolute. I don't know why it is, right, causing a problem, right? Okay, so we have this absolute, button is absolute. It should have overlap. Now it is coming over here. So now let me first of all, right, try to make it absolute and move it up, right? I think now let me just bring this image down and let me make this div as absolute, right? I think that would work, right? Let me just show it to you, right? Let me see if it works, right? I don't want to make my button as absolute. I will make this div, right? I have put this button inside my div as absolute, right? So I have made this div as absolute and my image over here. Cool. So now this button comes over here, add plus, right? Now you can just move it down, top, whatever, right? You can do it however you want to, right? Let me also make it a little better, right? Let me make it look better. How? Let's make it a little round. Let's make it like, let's give it some margin, right? Let's give it some margin, right? So if I have to give it margin of X, right, in the margin of x-axis, let's give it some margin of x-axis of maybe, right, 20px or something, right? Let's give it margin of 20px. Let's make it some rounded corners, right? Rounded LG, and let's see, right? And let me remove this margin auto first of all, right? I don't want margin auto. It won't work like this, right? And let me see. Okay, so margin of x, right? Margin of 20px, right? Instead of 20, let me just increase it a little, right? Let me give it margin of 16, right? MX16. Cool. So it looks better, right? Now this ad looks better. Now you can customize it however you want to, move it up, down, top, right, left corner, but I have done, right? This is all I am doing for now, right? Or maybe let's make it a little more better. I think the add button should be in black color. If I inverse the color, how will it look? Background black. Let's see if we make the background black, does it look good? And text white. Text is equals to white. Right? Let's do this. Cool. I don't know how is it looking for you, but you can play with CSS, right? Do whatever you want to. But this is how our app looked like, right? If I close this, right? See, it looks very good, right? It looks much, much, much better than how it used to look before, right? It looks much, much more better, right? If I go to my home, right? Now let's go to some other restaurant, right? If I see, let's go to some other, maybe let's go to Burger King. So if I go to Burger King, see this. It looks amazing, isn't it? It looks amazing, right? It looks amazing, isn't it? It looks much amazing, right? Let me go back to the home, and if I go back to my roti, where is this? Rotiwala.com, right? Let's go to Rotiwala. So this was what I was working on, right? This looks amazing. Now let's not deviate, right? We have done whatever CSS we have to, just put in as much as CSS you want to, right? And make it look more beautiful, right? But for now, let's now make that functionality of expanding and closing this, right? Expanding this and closing this, right? So how will I make that functionality? Oh my God, this has become a lot, right? Our JSX is looking very huge, right? Anyways, right? Let's go back, right? If I go to category, now I want to hide and show my item list. Right? I want to hide and show my item list, right? When I click on a button, when I click on this header, right? When I click on this header, it should hide and show, right? It should hide and show. First of all, let's make this header clickable, right? First of all, let's make this header clickable. Where is this header? This is the div, right? This is our header, right? I have to, if I click on this header, right? So I will write a on click over here. If I click on this header, I want to hide and show, right? Over here. So let me create a function. Let's call it as handle click, right? Handle click, handle click. Cool. So I have created a function handle click. Let me create a function. Let me write it down, right? Handle click, right? If I click, then this function will be called. This function will basically show and hide our item list, right? How will we do that, right? Can you think of it, right? We want to show and hide this item list. When I click on this, right? When I click on this button, let me just do a console log, right? Console log, right? Clicked, right? Let me just print it down, clicked, right? Let me see. If I click on it, I want to write some logic, right? Inside this handle click. Let's just see. If I click on this button, inspect, right? So go to console. Oh my God, let me just remove the other console logs, right? Now I don't need a console log inside my items, right? Let me just get rid of it. If I go over here and if I go back and if I click on this button, okay, first of all, let me just change the cursor to pointer, right? It's not looking good, right? Let's change the cursor to pointer, right? Let's change the cursor to pointer. Where is my cursor to pointer? Where is my header? Yep, this is the header, right? Let me make it cursor pointer, right? Cursor pointer, so that it looks better, right? It looks cursor pointer. So now I have this cursor pointer, right? If see this, now it shows a little hand in my mouse. So if I click on this, right, it is showing clicked, right? It is just logging clicked over here. See this? On click of it, it should show and expand, right? It should expand and collapse. How can I make it? So, you know, items list, right? This items list, this JSX is on the UI layer. Now I want to handle this show and hide from the data layer, right? I have to work on my data layer. This is the UI layer, this item list. I want to work on my data layer. So this data layer has a state variable, right? And that state variable will decide whether this item list will be shown or not, okay? So I can create a normal state variable, right? Right? I can create a normal state variable. That variable will control if I want to show items, right? Show items or not, right? So how will I create a state variable? How do we create it? You will create an array and we use something known as useState, right? Let's use this useState, right? This useState comes from React, right? And what I have to do? Show items, show items, and there is second one is set show items. Hope you have not forgotten this, right? Syntax, right? Set show items, right? And you state by default, let's make it close, right? Let's close everything, right? By default, let's close everything. Let's have this show items as false, right? Now, if this show items is false, right? If this show items is true, then only show this item list. How do I write logic for this, right? I will wrap it inside my curly braces. If my show items is present, if I show items and if there is show items, then only show my items list. If my show items is true, then only show my items list. Otherwise, don't show it. So if my show items is false, right? My show items is false. It should not show my item list. Let me go back to the UI. Oh my God, something went wrong. Refresh the page. Each key item should have a unique key property. Restaurant menu, right? Let's go to restaurant menu. Where did we miss the key? Oh, over here we missed the key, right? Over here we missed the key. Okay, so let's give it some key. Key is equals to category.card, and maybe let's give it a card name only, right? As the dot name. I think there would be dot name or dot info dot name. I don't know. Let me just see. Info dot name or something. I am not sure. What is the name? Okay, title. Okay, data.title. So title, right? Let's give it the card key as title. Now it should not throw an error. Cool. This is not showing an error. Let me refresh my page, right? So now all the accordions are collapsed. Now all these categories are collapsed. If I click on it, now I have to write the logic to show that, right? Now, if I click on that, right, where is my category? If I handle click, right, over here, I have to write the logic to turn my show items as true, right? To turn my show items as true. How would I do that? Set show items as true, right? Set show items as true. If I click on this, it will just show my items, isn't it? It will just show my items. Got it? So let's go back. If I click on my recommended, it just shows the items, right? It just shows the items. Isn't it amazing? Right? It just shows the item. Now I want to build it a toggle feature. If I click on it once again, it should hide also, right? So basically set show items if not of show items. Understood? If my show items is true, make it false. If my show items is false, make it true. This is how we build a toggle feature, right? Save it. Let me go back. See this. Amazing, right? We have built our own accordion. We have built our own accordion. Isn't it amazing? Right? Isn't it amazing? Now I can open and collapse any accordion I want. Now I can open and collapse any accordion I want, right? See this. All these ice creams are here. All these newly added items are here. Amazing, isn't it? We have written code from scratch of accordion. We have written code of accordion from scratch. This is how you built it. This is how you built it. Got it? So this is what I wanted to show you. It is easy to build. It can be your interview question, right? And how much time did it take? I think we would have taken some 20-30 minutes to build this, but it's full, right? We have built it with a very beautiful UI, right? But you understood how you built it, right? So we are controlling this item list, right? We are controlling this item list with show items, right? With show item. Now let's take a break quickly. And then meanwhile, you just finish all this in your code, right? In your project, just do all this, whatever I have done. See how data layer works. See how UI layer is aligning to it. See how we can build this kind of view, right? We can make this cards look beautiful, right? Please make this, right? Please try to do this, and let's come back after a short break. Welcome back, my dear friends. Now I am going to show you another amazing important concept, right? Another amazing important concept. For that, I will build another feature inside this app, right? Right now, if you'll see it clearly, I can open and collapse my accordion, right? If I open recommended, right? If I open newly added. So you know what happens is it just opens, shows and hide, right? It just shows and hide the item list. Suppose if I have to build a feature where, suppose if I have opened this accordion and if I try to open newly added, it should collapse all the other accordion, right? So suppose, interviewer can ask you to build this type of feature, right? So suppose if I have opened this newly added, if I open recommended, it should collapse all the other accordions, right? It should collapse all the other accordions. So the behavior very similar to this accordion, right? See this. So there is an important item. See, if I open the item 2, it collapses the item 1, right? If I open item 1, it collapses all the others, right? If I open item 3, it collapses all the others. This is what, suppose if we have to build this, how can we build this? Can you think of it? It's an important concept. It's an important concept in React. Now, this item, to build this kind of feature, it's a little tricky with the existing code that we have written, right? It is a little tricky. So please pay attention. I am going to teach you an important concept. Please pay attention now, right? This is very important, very minute details you have to observe, right? Right now, if you'll see this type of behavior, right? If I have to expand the item list of recommended, I can just click and do, right? It will just show and hide, right? How will it do that? This show items, right? If I click on my button, I can hide, I can modify my show item for that particular component. Let me just show it to you in a much better way, okay? First of all, let me tell you another important tool which will be very helpful for you for debugging. Very helpful for you. Let me explore you that tool. This is known as React DevTools. Install it in your system right now, right? React DevTools, right? React DevTools, Chrome, right? This is a Chrome extension, right? Please install it. I already have this in my laptop. I already have this extension in my laptop. Please, right? See this will be the icon. I already have it. That's why it is showing remove from Chrome, but I want you all to install this. Now, once you have installed that tool, very, very important tool, I'll show you how it will be important, right? If I do a inspect in my console, when you will install that extension, what will happen is our console will get, our developer consoles will get some superpowers. What superpowers it will get? If you click on this, we will get 2 more things over here, right? 2 more things over here. This will not be proper, this is coming from that extension, okay? This will not be there in your browser if you haven't installed it. But after installing your React Developer Tools Chrome extension, you will get these 2, components and profilers. Let me show you these components. If you'll click on these components, basically it will show you all the list of components over here, right? All the list of components hierarchy over here. This is very, very, very helpful for debugging, my friends. Very, very helpful. Whatever you are seeing in the UI, this basically shows you all the components, right? This basically shows you all the components, right? This is the beauty of this, right? This is the beauty of this, right? If I hover onto this resto category, see this is recommended. If I go to newly added, see this, it is showing us all these components, right? It shows you all the component tree that we have. This is a very important extension. And another cool thing about this extension is, if I click on any of the components, suppose if I click on this resto category, it will show you the data layer. So basically this left side is the UI layer that I was talking about. This is the JSX. This is, you can also call this as a virtual DOM. This is basically the virtual DOM of this page. This is basically the virtual DOM of the UI. This is basically a representation of a virtual DOM in a way. This is the UI layer. And on the right hand side, you will see this is the data layer. This will show you all the props that this component is receiving. Click on this. It will show you all the props. See this. We have passed in that props, right, in the item list, right? So this is the props it is receiving. Got it? So this is a props this is returning. Suppose if I open this, see this, there is an item list, right? So now this item list, if I click on this, it will show you the props, right? This props. It is very, very useful for debugging, my dear friends. Very, very useful. Please, please, please install it. Please install it. Right? Now, let me show you one more superpower of it. This is components. There is something known as profiler also. If I click on this profiler, right? If I click on this profiler, there are three things: flame graph, rank, timeline. How do you use this profiler? This profiler basically records your React application. When you'll say record, what do you mean by record, Akshay? Let me show you. So let me start recording. If I click on this button, it says start profiling, right? It basically profiles. So if I click on this, see profiling in progress. Now, whatever you do inside your, right, whatever you will do inside your React application, it will try to record it, right? See this. Suppose if I open this and I am closing this, right? I am opening this recommended, I am opening this newly added, I am closing this, or I am moving on to certain pages or doing whatnot, right? Right? If I do that, right, let me go back to home page, right? Let's go back to the home page, right? It has loaded some data. Let me go back to that Roti Wala restaurant, right? I have come back to the data. I have opened this. Meanwhile, I am doing all this. It is just recording all our actions. Let me stop profiling. If I stop profiling, it will take some time, but it will give you the data. Do you see this? So basically, it will give you all the actions that we were doing. See this, we have done 10 actions over here. If I move over here, it will show you all these things, right? What I was doing. See this, I was changing, I clicked. See this. First of all, I loaded this page, right? Then I clicked on this, right? I opened this item list. And it also shows you how much time it took. See, if I click on this, it shows you that item list took 0.2 milliseconds of 1.8 milliseconds. See this. Rendered at, see what it shows, it rendered after 12 seconds and it took 1.8 milliseconds. This is a very important tool. If you know how to use it, you can, like, it is so amazing. I can't tell you, I can't stress enough, right? You will see the differences. See, then I loaded some other page, right? It will show you. See this. I was here. I was just doing some things on this page, right? As soon as I move to next action, I loaded this full page. See, it is colorful. Colorful are the components, right? Colorful components are the components which are getting affected by our action. I moved to another page, so it loaded everything. Now, see this. This was body component was loaded. We went back to body component and then we came back to restaurant menu component. It shows everything. This is the flame graph. You can see it ranked, right? This ranked shows you a different view of the same thing, right? It shows you. And it also shows you how much time it took to render. You can find out the components which takes a lot of time to render when your app grows big. This is, this is what is the thing, what you have to do. This is what is the capabilities of a senior engineer. You are a good React developer. I want you all to be so good React developers. When you will build your large scale production ready application, these tools will help you monitor that where you are going wrong. This tool will tell you, right? You can see the timeline view. You can see the ranked view. You can see flame graph. Try to use it, right? Try to use as much as you can. Okay, so right now I'm just showing you that this is a tool that exists, right? Now let's go back to our components because I'm deviating from the topic. We were discussing something. Now, you might have some doubt, right? What is this router provider, data provider, navigation? I did not add all these components. These components were added by your packages. We had a React router, right? So that React router added all this. Don't worry about that. It's completely fine. Our code starts from here, right? See this app layout. See this app layout. We added app layout. We had a header. We had an outlet, right? So we have all this. So extra things that you see, these are added by these libraries and external libraries that we use and import, right? So don't get panic if you will see this, right? But what I'm trying to show you, we were trying to build this, right? If I click on this, right? If I click on this, and if I click on recommended, all the other accordions should collapse if I expand on one accordion, right? We were trying to build this behavior. Why I am telling you all this is, what is the use? I am telling you all this that because see, all these restaurant category accordion items, they have their own state, right? They have their own state. Right? They have their own show items, right? It has another, see, the show items of recommended is different, right? The show items of recommended is true right now, right? That is why we have expanded the list. The show item of newly added, this one, show items of this restaurant category is false, right? If I click on it, it becomes true. That is why, see this. Why I am showing you, we can debug it. See this. If over here, see this, the state is true, right? This state is true. This, if I reveal the name, if I click on this, see this, state of show items is true here, right? If I click on this, the state of show items is false here. It shows you everything, right? It shows you everything. If I'll expand it, so what I am trying to say is all these restaurant category are maintaining their own states, right? Did you understand this? I hope you would have understand this. You would be thinking, Akshay, I already know this, right? It's okay. It's good that you know this, right? A lot of people won't know this. I'm telling you, a lot of people won't know this. So all these have their own show items, right? And if I click on this, it can show item list. If I click on this once again, it can hide item list, right? But if I click on recommended, right? Now if I click on newly added, I want that my recommended should collapse. So basically, understand what we are trying to build. If I click on another restaurant category, I want all the other restaurant category to know that newly added has been expanded. If I click on this, I want my recommended to collapse itself, right? I want my recommended to collapse itself, right? If I expand newly added, I want my recommended to collapse itself, right? Because the power of collapse is here in the hand of recommended, right? This restaurant category. Got it? So it is very tough to build this kind of feature because each of these restaurant category have their own state. They are managing their own state. They are managing their own show items. They are controlling. Basically, what I am trying to say is, let me recap it once again. If you did not understand it, now you will be understanding it, right? Please listen to me very carefully. This recommended component is controlling the item list, right? Is controlling the item list. And newly added is not aware about what is happening inside this recommended component. It does not know. It's newly added does not know whether recommended is collapsed or expanded or whatever. So what I have to do is, suppose if I have to build this feature, if I open recommended, it should collapse everything else. I want this state to be lifted up, right? I want this state to be lifted up. So I don't want to give the power of show and collapse item list to this recommended. I will give the power of show and expand and collapse to the parent of this child. Now it will be very confusing. I'll tell you right now, right? Let me recap it once again. Right now, this restaurant category has power to show and expand its item list, right? Right now it can show and expand, right? It is doing it over here, right? It is doing the set show items over here. But I want this restaurant category, I don't want to give this power. I want to give the power to restaurant menu, right? I want to give the power of show and expand to restaurant menu now, to parent. Basically, what I am trying to say is, I want my restaurant category to take an input whether you should show items or not. Did you understand? If I pass in, restaurant category, whatever I pass in over here should be followed, right? Whatever I pass in over here should be followed. So basically, I am lifting my state up, right? What I am trying to say. So restaurant category has its own show items over here. I want restaurant menu to control all these restaurant category. That is why I showed you this extension. So right now, each of these restaurant category is controlling itself, right? Controlling itself. I want restaurant menu to control all of this restaurant. That is how we can expand and collapse any restaurant category here we want to. Very small, minute thing. If you did not understand it, please rewind the video and watch it once again. But what I'm trying to say, I don't want this restaurant category to manage itself. I want restaurant menu to control all of these restaurant category. Right? So whatever I pass in from the top, it should do this. Right? So now this restaurant category will not have its own state. I don't want restaurant category to have its own show items. I want restaurant menu to tell whether you should show items or not. I want my parent. See, restaurant menu is a parent. Let me close all this, right? Let me close all this because I want you all to, if you understand that this is very important, this is complex for some people. This is very easy for some people. For people who are not able to understand this, listen to me very carefully right now. A restaurant menu is a parent, right? And it has a lot of restaurant categories. I want this parent to control its children, right? I want its parent to control its children. If I say show item, it should show. If I say hide item, it should hide, right? If I pass in false, it should not show. If I pass in true, I should show. Got it? So now I want to take away this power. So I don't want my restaurant category to have its own state, right? I don't want my restaurant category to have its own state. It should not have its state. But it should take my show items from my props. Right? Where is this props coming from? It always comes from the parent. So basically, if I pass in show items as false, then show my item list. If I pass in true, it does not show. Now, my dear friends, why I am telling you all this? Because now I want to give you a jargon. That jargon is known as controlled and uncontrolled components. Got it? So this is a controlled component now. This restaurant category is a controlled component now because you are controlling the parent. This restaurant menu component is controlling this restaurant category now. It is controlled component. Right? Now this is a controlled component. When it has its own state, right? When it had its own state, right? When it had its own state, it was an uncontrolled component because restaurant menu does not have its control. If it wants to show and hide something, it can do it itself. This was not controlled, right? It was controlling itself. So it was an uncontrolled component. The parent does not have control over its children, right? Restaurant menu did not have full control over this. This is the difference between a controlled and an uncontrolled component. And this is a very famous interview question. Let me repeat it once again. If the restaurant category was controlling itself, right? These show items, it would have been a controlled component. So uncontrolled component. If I take away this power, right? And if I take away this power, then it is an uncontrolled component because it is relying upon its parent to tell it what it do. Now this is a control component. Now I am controlling it from a restaurant menu. Now there is no specific definition of controlled and uncontrolled component, right? It is just a philosophy, I would say, right? Some people call it as that restaurant category is a controlled component. That means I can control it via props, right? I can control it. It does not have its own state, right? It can have its own state, but that state is not the main state. So majorly I am controlling it from the parent. So this is a control component. If I were not sending this and it was managing itself, it was an uncontrolled component. Hope you would have understood the difference. Now let's continue to build our feature of expanding and collapsing. Now the parent has control to hide all the items, right? Collapse all the accordions, and the parent can control all these rest categories, right? I have passed in false, right? That means for all the restaurant category, I have closed them. Got it? So I have closed all these, right? I have closed all this. If I click on this, now if I click on this, I want to expand this and collapse all the others. I can do this now by, you know how I will do this? If I make it true, right? What will happen? First of all, let me make it true. What will happen? It will expand all the accordions, right? See this. It will expand all the accordions, right? Why? Because it is sending true for all. For all these category, for all these restaurant category, it is sending true. I want to only send true for, suppose if I want to only send true for my first, I want to suppose if I want to expand my first according only. How will I do that? How will I do that? I will just try it for my first, right? So I will try to find out index. If index is equal to 0, right? For the first, just send true, right? If the index is 0, then send true. This is how you write it, right? If my index is equal to 0, if you write and, it will just send true. If my, where is this index come from? Index will come from my map function. So if you don't know how this index is coming, go check my map filter reduce video. So the first parameter over here is each item from this map. On that second is index. This is how you get the index of it. So if the index is 0, then true. So how I can control this is, now I can control this children, right? If the index is 0, that means the first, then true, right? If I'll go back, so the recommended is true. See this, all that is collapsed. Now my parent is controlling them, right? Isn't it? Let's make the second one as, let me close this. Let's make the second one as expanded, right? How will I make it second one? If the index is 1, then make it true. Otherwise, all of them are false, right? I can send it like this, right? See this. Now you would understand it even more, right? See this. If my index is 1, send true. Otherwise, send false. So now I am controlling this. That is why this restaurant category is now a controlled component. Okay, this is a controlled component. Let me comment it down. This is a controlled component now, right? This is a controlled component. Parent is controlling it. If I say index 1 would be true, so it will have index 1 as true. See this, newly added as true. Now I want to make this, if I click on it, it should show and expand, right? So first of all, what I'll do is, how will I build that feature? But I want to build a feature. If I click on this recommended, it should show itself and collapse all the others, right? So what am I trying to build is, at a time, only one accordion should be expanded, right? At a time, if we see it clearly, we want to build at a time, only one accordion should be expanded. Isn't it? So how will I control that? I can take this index in my state, right? Can I do that? Right? Let me just say that I am building a state variable, expand index, right? Or maybe show index, right? Show index. So show index means if the show index is 0, first will be open. If the show index is 1, second will be open. If the show index is 2, third will be open, and all the others will be collapsed. Got it? Understood? That is what we are trying to build. So set show index, right? I am just creating this, and I am creating this state variable, right? Use state, right? Use state, and by default, the first one is open. By default, the first one should be open, right? Show index. Got it? If show index is 0, it means, and let me just import my use state, right? How would I import my use state? Use state from React, right? So according to my show index, I want to control my show items. If my index is equal to show index, right? Show index is 0. So my index is 0. So it should send true. So if I change my show index somehow, right? Suppose if I want second one, right? Suppose if I want this newly added to be open. So what should happen? My show index should be 1. Got it? So my show index is 1. So what am I trying to say is, this show index, if I change my show index, it will automatically update it, right? It will automatically update it, right? It will automatically expand and collapse it, right? And the parent can control it. Now, how can I on the click of this on the click of this, how can I alter my show index? How can I alter my show index? I know this can be a little confusing, but please pay attention. I will revise it once again. Okay. But first of all, let me recap whatever I have told. First of all, I have told you about controlled and uncontrolled components. Right? So earlier, all these accordion items were controlling themselves. Now I have taken that power and I have given it to the parent. Now the parent is controlling all. And at a time, only one can be expanded. At a time, only one accordion can be expanded. And that accordion is expanded with this show index. Whatever the show index is, that accordion will be expanded. Otherwise, all the accordions will be false. All the accordions will be false. Right? Now, when I click on this recommended, I somehow want to change my show index. Now you would see that how can a child modify? See this. If I have this restaurant category, on this handle click, if I click on this, I should somehow, right over here, if I click on this, I should somehow modify the state variable of my parent. Oh my God. Can I modify this show index from my rest category? Amazing question, right? Can I modify the state variables of my parent from my children? Can I do that? It's not possible directly, but indirectly you can do that. How? Let me show it to you. So if I want to show index, right? So I want to pass this set show index to my children. Right? So basically I can pass my set show index to my children. How will I pass it? I will pass a function, right? Right? And it will be called, right, index. Right? Now I will pass this function. This function will basically set the show index of that particular index, right? So now basically I can set the show index. I can pass this feature of setting the show index to my children, right? And I can extract it here. Set show index, right? Set show index. Right? I can pass this over here, right? As soon as I click on it, as soon as I click on that new accordion, it will just, what will happen? It will just set the show index from its parent, right? It will just change the index of it, right? And all the others will be collapsed. Got it? So if I'll close this, so I just have to call this. Whenever I hit this, right? It will just show itself. So basically, it will just set show index, right? It will just basically show itself whenever we click on it. So what am I trying to say is, let me show you the behavior. So if I will go here, right? If I will go to my newly added, right? Let me first of all expand. We have expanded the first one first of all, right? We have expanded the first one first of all. If I click on newly added, right? If I click on newly added, see this. My newly added has opened and the recommended has collapsed. How? Because whenever I clicked on this, right? Whenever I clicked on this, it basically called the set show index. And the set show index is basically a different set show index all the time. Got it? I know it can be confusing, but try to write the code yourself and try to see this is how it works. Let me recap it once again. Let me show you over here, right? This can give you a better view, right? This can give you a better view. Earlier, all these components were controlling themselves. Now this restaurant menu has where is the prop, right? Let me refresh the page. I think it is taking it, right? So my restaurant menu, this is our parent, right? Now this restaurant menu basically has a state variable. Let me just show you all these state variables. See this 0, right? So right now the expanded accordion is 0, right? And if I see all these accordions, so they will get their own set show index, right? They will get their own set show index, right? They will get their own set show index, right? So if I click on this newly added, if I click on this restaurant category, right? If I click on this restaurant category, right? If I click on this newly added, see this. If I'll click on this newly added, right now the state is 0. The parent state is 0. If I click on this newly added, it will change to 1, right? If I click on this, see, it changed to 1. And because the set show state is 1, set show index is 1, it will just expand the accordion with index 1. If I expand this, it will expand the accordion with index 0. Got it? And suppose if we don't want to expand anything, I can just, suppose if I want to collapse everything, I can just remove this, right? Let me just make it null. If I make it null, nothing is expanded. If I click on it, I can expand it. If I click on this, I can expand this and collapse this. This is how you can build this. Now, why I was making this all confusing? Earlier also it was fine, right? In Swiggy, right? It is not like if we have expanded I can expand anyone, right? I can expand multiple also. I was showing you that feature because it is a very complex feature, and I wanted to teach you an important concept in React that is known as lifting state up. Sometimes we have to lift these state ups if we have to control our children. This is an advanced concept. I want you to read more about lifting the state up on the React document, right? And try to implement the same feature. You will understand it properly. I'm telling you, you will understand it. Give it some time, right? Lifting the state up in React. And this is very common, and this is a very important interview question. I want you all to be very good at this, right? Let's go there, right? Don't go to this older doc, go to the new doc, right? Let's go to react.dev, right? This is the new docs, and over here just search for lifting state up. See this, lifting state up, right? And I have tried to use the same example. Now when you will read this, it will make sense to you, right? It also uses the example of accordions, right? Please read this. It will make sense if you have not understood it. But this is a very, very, very important concept. You have to do this. You have to learn this. Okay? Now, also, there is one more homework which I would like to give. Now, there is a bug in our application. It's not a bug, it's a feature basically, right? That if I expand this, everything else should collapse, right? But can I also collapse this? Right now I can't collapse this, right? I want all of them to be collapsed, right? This is your homework. Please do this. Let's take a break over here right now. Drink some water. Come back once again because we have just started. We are going to explore more amazing concepts now, but I want you to be good at what we studied. By this time, you should know. In this episode, we have covered higher order components. We have covered controlled and uncontrolled components. We have seen what is lifting the state up. We have built this accordions. You should know all of this. And going forward, I will be covering an important concept of use context, right? I would be teaching you context APIs, right? What is context inside React? React context. It is a powerful way to manage data. This is what we are going to study in upcoming part of this episode, right? So take a break, do whatever we have done till now in your code, and then come back again. We are not done with the episode yet, right? This episode can go a little long, but I am here to teach you. That is why it took time to release also. Let's take a break and come back very soon. Welcome back, my dear friends. Now we are going to see another important concept in React, and this is also related to data, right? As I said, every React application has a UI layer and a data layer, and data layer is very, very, very important. If we know how to manage the data layer properly, our React applications will be very smooth and will be very easy to build, right? So now moving on ahead, let me tell you another important concept, which is famously known as props drilling. What is props drilling, right? So this is a concept, props drilling, right? Props drilling means, you know what happens in a real world React application? there are a lots and lots of components and they have a different hierarchy. So if you'll see over here also, right, in our application, see how does the hierarchy of our application looks. Let me refresh the page. Go to this components tab. So basically our React application, when it grows big, right, so there are components and there are components within them, there are components within them, there are components within them. It's like a tree, big tree structure, right? There is a lot of levels of nesting inside it. And passing data between the components, right? Passing data from one component to other component is a very big challenge when the application is huge, right? And React has one-way data flow, right? You must have seen that, you must have observed, right, when you are writing React code. So React is a one-way data stream, right? Kind of like React in React applications, right? The data is passed from parents to children, and then children to their children, and then their children to their children, right? Similarly, data flows in one direction from top to bottom, right? If we have suppose data, right? Let me give you an example. If I have to give you an example, suppose we have this restaurant menu page, right? So this restaurant menu page passes data to restaurant category, right? This restaurant category, and this restaurant category pass data to item list, right? Similarly, this is how the data flows. What if, let me give you an example. Suppose if there is some data inside restaurant menu, okay? Let's give it just cons data, right? I'm just taking it as data is equals to dummy data, right? Suppose if I want to pass this dummy data, right? Suppose if I want to pass this dummy data, right? This dummy data to my like, we are on the top, right? We have created some dummy data on the top level, right? Now I want to pass in this data to the leaf of that tree, right? Their children to their children. Suppose if I want to pass that data, right? It is here, right? In our restaurant menu. In our restaurant menu, we had that data, right? This data is equals to dummy data. Now I want to access this data inside my item list, right? Where is that item list? Restaurant menu has restaurant category, and restaurant category has item list, right? So this is our item list. Suppose if I want some data, this dummy data in my item list, how will I fetch that? So basically what I will have to do, I can't directly access my item list. I can't pass in this dummy data, right? Let's call it as constant dummy, right? Instead of data, let's call this as dummy. So I want to pass this dummy to my item list. I can't directly pass in, right? If there is a tree and it has some nodes, child nodes, and it has some child nodes, so I can directly jump and pass in that data. I have to pass in data via its intermediate parents, right? So basically if I want to pass this dummy data to my item list, first of all, I'll have to pass this dummy data to my restaurant category, right? Basically I'll have to pass in this dummy data to my restaurant category, and now my restaurant category will receive this dummy data, right? Will receive this dummy data. Now this dummy data will be passed to items children, right? My dummy data will be passed to items children. And now I can access this dummy data inside my item list, and I can do whatever I want to. I'll again have to do this, right? So basically I am just passing this dummy data down as a prop, right? I can do a console log of dummy, right? dummy dummy, right? And let me see this, right? So basically if I log this, so my dummy data is printed from item list. Got it? So it was on the restaurant menu. But think of a very big React application which has like so many deep level of nesting. Suppose there is a component, it has its children, that children has its children, that children has its children, and there are like 7-8 levels of nesting. So, and suppose if you have to pass some data from the parent to that children, will you do this, right? Will you follow the same pattern by passing this dummy to the props over here? Restaurant category, and listen to me very carefully. See, restaurant category has nothing to do with this dummy, right? It just have to pass into this item list, right? It's not using it internally, it is just passing it, right? So it's not a very good way, right, to just keep on passing this props like this. And this concept is known as props drilling, right? This concept is known as props drilling because you are drilling the props, right? Suppose if I want my props inside my item list, I am drilling it down and bring it up to the bottom, right? I'm bringing it up to the bottom. That is known as props drilling. It's a very important concept. Read about it on the React documentation, right? Props drilling, right? It would be there, right? Props drilling, this prop drilling, right? So the problem with prop drilling. So this is a problem inside React, right? The problem of passing props. And you know that data is the new oil, right? So managing data is very crucial part of our application. I don't want you to just pass in random props here and there. That's not a good way. So Akshay, should we not use props? No, that's not right. Props is a very important essential of React. State and props are very important in React. Without state and props, React component does not exist, and without components, nothing exists, right? In React, everything is a component in React. Everybody knows that, and components has their own states and props, right? That's what component is built of. But we should avoid prop drilling. So suppose if we have to pass in data to 1 or 2 levels, this is still okay, right? If we needed this data in item list, that is still okay. But what if our data is present somewhere and we want to access it somewhere else? How would I do that? Right? How would I do that? And in a large application, this is a very common scenario where sometimes we need to have some kind of a global data that I can access anywhere in my app, wherever I am, whatever nested level I am, whether I'm in header, whether I'm in footer, whether I'm in item list, whether I'm in card, whether I'm in any place I want to access some data. How we can do that? For that, React gives us a superpower, and that superpower is known as React Context. Right? So React gives us access to something known as React Context, and we can, while we use context, we can just avoid props drilling, right? We should not be passing anything, right? If we have to create global. So, a lot of people think that, okay, if I have to have some global data, right? I will keep it in the top level, right? Top level component, and then I will pass it as a props. But how much level? It's foolish to pass some data from props to like 10 levels deep. Not a good way, right? So what we can do is we use context, which is kind of like a global place where your data is kept and anybody can access it. That is known as React context, right? So let's now see what is context. Let's now see a lot of examples to use this context, and let us see how we can make our data layer even more powerful with this React context. Got it? So let's just see how context works, right? First of all, let me show you some scenario. Suppose, think of some data which can be needed anywhere in our application, right? All across our application, so many components, right? So many pages, right? We need to keep it in a central place. What kind of data could it be? What kind of data could it be? I'll tell you. One example of that data is logged in user. Have you ever thought that once the user logs in, sometimes we need that login information inside header also, right? Sometimes you must have seen that here it shows the name, right? If we go to Gmail, on the top right hand corner, it shows you, right? Your name Akshay, right? The logged in username, right? Instead of this login, right? In the next of that login, suppose we want to show the logged in username, and that logged in username can be needed inside a card, right? Any card over here, right below, isn't it? Any card. That logged in user info can be needed in some other page, can be needed in some other different, maybe in footer, right? So basically there are some piece of data where we want that data to be accessed from anywhere in our app, right? Similar, one example is logged in user info, isn't it? Another example is theme, right? It's very common that, we need the theme. What do you mean by theme is like light theme or dark theme, right? Right now we don't have a dark theme for our app, right? But we can build it. So suppose if it was dark theme, so I want in the dark theme, I want this text to be white and the background to be black. right? So I need that information in my items list also. I need that information in all across my app. So there is some data, right? What I'm trying to say is there is some data that we need anywhere in our app, right? Can be accessed from anywhere in our app. For that data, we hold it inside a context, and that context can be used anywhere in our app, right? Let's try to create this context, and let's try to demystify what this context is and how we can use it. Are you ready? Pay attention. I am full of energy and I am going to teach you this. Please pay attention. Take your notebook and a pen and keep taking notes, because this is really very important. We are on episode 11. Data is the new oil. Let us see how we can create a context inside React. Let me go to the home once again. And you know what? Context solves the problem of props drilling, right? If we had a central store where we can keep the data, right? We don't need to drill down the props now. I can access it anywhere I want to, right? That's why I was talking about props drilling. And then how will you cure it? One way is using context, right? There are many ways to avoid props drilling, right? Go read it up on React website, right? It will just keep your information very sane, right? But then also know that context is also a good way, right? Where we can keep data in a central place and we don't have to like randomly pass in props here and there. Got it? So props drilling was the problem and the solution is context. Now let us see that how we can use the context. But first of all, let me get rid of these console logs here, right? Items list, body.js. Okay, so let me just get rid of these console logs, right? Let me just get rid of these console logs from item list and from the body component, right? Because these console logs are distracting. Cool. Now, my dear friends, how do you create a context, right? So context is kind of like a global thing, right? So I generally would like to keep context not inside components, but in a different place, right? So let's create a context inside utils, right? So, and let's call this as user context, right? User context that will keep the information of a logged in user, right? So this is the example. I am just taking this example, right? User context, and this context will hold. This context basically, assume that this is a global kind of an object, right? For React, right? In our React application. Let us now create a user context, right? So how do we create a context? React gives us access to a important utility function that is known as create context, right? We will use that create context to create our user context, okay? So let's create a user context. Right? Let's create a user context. How do you create it? We will use create context, right? This create context comes from React library, right? Create context comes from React library. And when we create the context, we will give it some piece of information that it will hold. It's kind of like a central global object, right? So that global object, let's put in logged in user, right? Logged in user, and let's give it some name, right? So this is the default value that we are passing in over here to initialize it, right? Initially logged in user is default, right? Let's call this as default user or something, right? I am just using the word default user randomly, right? So wherever you see default user, that means this is our default user. Right? We have created this and I can export my context from here. Export default context, right? User context. Got it? So we have got this user context with us. And now, Akshay, did you say that I can access this context from anywhere in my app? Yes, my dear friends. And let me show you how we can access this. Right? How we can access this? So suppose if I have to access this in my header component, right? Here is my header component, and in the header, suppose if I have to say, right, after this login, right, I want to print the name of the user, logged in user, right? So this is where is the login user? This is the login button, right? After that, suppose I want another li, right? Another li item, right? And let me and over here, I want to use that context. I want to show the logged in user info. How I can access it? So I can access that piece of information using a React hook. React gives us hook. We can use that hook to access our context, right? So that hook name is, right? That hook name is just like we have use state. There is something known as use context. Easy, right? To create a context, it's create context. And to use it, we have something known as use context, right? We have something known as use context. Now I can use this context and I can just get the context data, right? Data from context, right? Data from context, and I'll use context, right? I'll just do a use context and I will now pass in this use context, user context. This user context comes from our user context file, right? So this use context is a hook which comes from React, and this user context, what context? So now, why do we pass in? See, in our whole React application, there is not just one context that we can create, right? You must be thinking, can I just have one context, user context? No, you can have as many contexts as you want to, as many global objects as you want to, right? You can assume. Don't use the word global objects. Like in the interviews, if you use the word global objects, like it kind sound, it is a different, right? It's a different thing altogether. But I'm just, so that you can relate it, right? I'm just talking it as a global object, but it's not exactly global object, right? So basically you can create multiple contexts, right? So this is just user context. So whatever context you have to use, pass in to use context, and you get that data from that user context over here. Let me just log it, right? Let me just log this data and see what came right inside our header. So if I see this, we have got this logged in user over here, right? Inside our header.js. This is header.js 13 line number, header.js 13 line number. We have got this data. So I can extract my logged in user from this data, right? I can extract it like this, right? I can get my logged in user like this, and let me display it over here, right? Here, instead of cart, let me display my logged in user here, right? And let me make it a little bold. So for bold, let me write it down, font bold. Okay, I have written this font bold, and if I see, we have got this default user in our header, right? So this is basically React context, and I can get that context data anywhere I want to in my app. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing, right? Let us just see, can I get it anywhere? This is our default user, right? So let's see. So I have got this data in my header. Now let's just see, can I get this data inside my, let's say I want to show the name below this 20 minutes, right? It is 20 minutes. Below this, I want to show the name of user. Now it is very, like, it's insane, right? Why would I want to do that? I'm just showing you that I can access it anywhere, right? On the top level, on the down level, on the deeper level, right? Where is this 20 minutes? It's in restaurant card, right? It's deep down located. So I don't have to pass that user info from props or somewhere. I can directly access it. How? I went to restaurant card, and in this restaurant card, how would I get access to that data? How will I get access to logged in user? So basically I want to use context, right? Let me use this context from React. This use context comes from React, and which context I want to use? I want to use user context, right? And this user context come from my util/user context, right? So now, and let me extract my logged in user from here. Logged in user from here. Now I have got this logged in user info, and now I want to print it inside my here, right? 20 minutes, right? Below this. So let us create another h4 tag, and let us put in my logged in user over here, right? And let me write user, right? Let me write user, and here is our logged in user, right? So this user is logged in user. If I go back, see this, I have got this user default user over here also, right? So it came inside all the cards. See this, isn't it amazing? I can use this data anywhere at whatever level I want to. It's kind of like a global thing. I just have to write this one line and I can access it from that global space. This is the power of context. Now, you can ask me, Akshay, should we keep all the data inside context, right? then if we keep all the data inside context, then we don't have to pass in props, right? There's no need of props, right? We don't have to pass in some data inside components through pops. But that is not the case. Only the data which you are using at like multiple places, or you feel that it can be used in multiple places, that is where you will use your context, right? Don't put like all data inside like context, right? It does not make sense, right? So you will understand it as we move ahead. But what I'm trying to say, you can access it anywhere you want to, right? You can access it anywhere you want to. See this, all these cards have this data. Now, let me just show you one more amazing thing. Will this context be available in our About Us page also? Right? In this About Us page, can we have that context? Let us just try to use it, right? In a different page, right? Can we use it? The answer is absolutely, right? Absolutely. And over here, oh my God, this About Us component was a class-based component. And in class-based component, we do not have hooks. We do not have hooks. So we cannot use context over here. Suppose we have not to use context. Now I cannot use a hook over here, right? It's a class-based component. So how can I access that? How can I access that? Let me show it to you. That's a great example, right? You should know that. So if you don't want to use a hook, right? Just like we use this use context. So in About Us component, suppose if we don't have to use hooks, so let me tell you how to access that context, right? First of all, let me import that context, right? It's very easy again, right? But the way is different. Right? User context, suppose I want to use this user context. I have to use this user context, right? Suppose on the below this about class component, right? So I can create a div, right? Over here, I want to show the logged in username, right? Logged in user, and I want to show the name of the user over here, right? Below this. How will you use it? You can do something like a user context dot consumer, right? You can write user context dot consumer, right? So what is this? How did we access this? What is this dot consumer? So basically, when you create a context, right? So React gives you a power of dot consumer as well. So you have two ways you can access that context. One way is by using a hook, like we used it, use hook, right? That's a very common way. That's the most used way, right? That is most common used way. And whenever you are using a context, use it like this. This is the standard way now with functional components. But if you have an older code, right, in your class-based components, if you don't have hooks, right, then you can use it like this, user context.consumer. And inside this, you will have to have a JSX which has a callback function, and this callback function gets access to that data. And this data is the context data, right? If I log this data, this is the context data. Let me go and show it to you. See this. User class 27, this is the data. No, this is not the data. Where is it? This, logged in user, right? This is the data, About Us 26, right? Let me remove other console logs so that it is visible to you properly. Where are other console logs? Oh my God, where are other, it's not here, right? Where are those other console logs? Where is this coming from? Okay, user class.js. User class.js. Where is my user class? Here, right? Okay, this one. So let me just remove all these console logs, right? It's coming from a different component. Cool. So now we still have that. Where is our console? Oh, here also, right? Cool. I have removed all the console logs. Now if we go ahead and see, right? If I refresh my page, see this. We have got this default user, right? About Us 26, right? About Us, about.js 26. This is how we get the data over here, right? So what did we do? We used user context.consumer and we used it like a component, right? This is a component. This is not a hook. This is a component. In that component, we have a callback function, right? This is a function that gets data inside it, right? Who passes the data? React takes care of everything, right? It gives you the access to data, right? You can do it. Now let's print the logged in user. I can extract the logged in user here, and I can just add a h1 tag or something, right? Let's use a h1 tag over here, and let's give it logged in user, right? This logged in user as a piece of JSX, right? This will return a JSX and it will print the h1 tag, and let make it some text little large and bold, or so that like I can see that, right? Text a little bold. Cool. So we have got this default user, right? So this is how user context.consumer, you can consume it inside your class-based components, and you can use it hooks also, right? Just like we used hook over here, use context. Both are the ways to consume the context. Both are these ways to consume the context. Got it? So this is one thing. This is about reading the context, right? Now let me show you one more important thing. In the real life, right? In real life, this is the default user, right? This is the default value inside our context. What if we want to change the value of this user context? What if we wanted to not use the default value, but suppose if I logged in, right? If I logged in as a user, right? If I have some authentication code written in my app and I logged in, how can I modify this context? How can I modify this? Let us see that. Let me go to component and let me just go to my maybe body component, right? Or maybe let's go to the root level, right? Let me go to the root level app component, right? This is the app.js, right? On the app level, suppose I have my authentication code written over here, right? This is the app level, right? This is the root of our app layout, right? Now, suppose if I am having some authentication code written, right? Authentication code written. Some maybe making some API call to fetch some login and see whether the username password is correct or not, and we got some data, right? So we have the authentication, and now suppose, and we have kept this data inside a local state, right? Local state of our application, right? Maybe let's keep that logged in user, or maybe user info, right? Suppose if there is a API which gives us like user info, right? Set user info, right? And we have kept this data inside my top level, right? Use state. Got it? So why I am doing this, I'll show it to you, right? Suppose, how will you first of all get this user info, right? How will you implement authentication? Suppose if you have to make an API call, how would you make an API call? How would you make an API call? How would you write the authentication logic? How would you write the authentication logic? Suppose I will have to create a use effect, right? In this use effect, I will have a callback function, right? In this callback function, right? And I will call it once, right? Empty parenthesis. Now I will make an API call, and send username and password, right? We send the username password and we got the result, right? And suppose I got my data, right? I got my data and it says I got my data, and I'm just keeping dummy data, right? I got my data, and suppose the name came in as Akshay, right? Akshay Saini, right? I got this data, name is equals to Akshay Saini. Now I want to keep this data, right, in my user info, right? Suppose this is the user info, right? How do I update this user info? I can just do a set user info, right? Set user info from here, right? I can do a set user info from here, right? Set user info, and maybe basically inside the set user info, I would give it data.name, isn't it? Right? I will give it data.name. So now this Akshay Saini will be there inside my user info. Now we have written this authentication logic over here, right? Now, right now, everywhere the value of my context is default user. Suppose I want to update it with Akshay Saini. How do I pass this context information to my app? How do I pass this context, the new information in my app? To pass this new information in my app, I will use context provider, right? So just like we had user context.consumer, this is how we can use something known as, first of all, let me import my user context, right? I will import my user context, and then I will use a, right, user context. From user context, I will use a user context dot provider. So user context dot provider, right, that is provided to us, right? That is provided to us by React, right? So this is a user context dot provider, and I will wrap my whole app inside this user context dot provider. Right? And then this user context dot provider, and I can pass in whatever value I have to pass in, right? So suppose if I have to pass in a value that now my logged in user becomes my user info, right? Basically this user info, right? This user info is basically this Akshay Saini, right? And instead of user info, let's call this as username, right? User info sounds that we have a lot of things inside it, but let's call this as username, right? Let's call this as username. So set username, right? And let's call this as username. So now my logged in user is my username. What I have done is, right? What I have done is, see, this is normal React, right? You already know this. What extra I have done is I have just got my context, and now I am providing a new value to it, and I am providing it to whole app. Whatever you wrap inside, right? I have wrapped my whole app inside this user context dot provider. That means anywhere inside my app, we have the context provider, we have the user context provider. The value will be this. Now our components will not be using the default value. Now the context will be using, wherever I am using that logged in user, the logged in user value will be this new value. Got it? What is this new value? Akshay Saini. Understood? So if I go back to my app, see this. Everywhere it is Akshay Saini. See the Akshay Saini, Akshay Saini. And if I go back to home, in all the cards I will have Akshay Saini. See this. So basically what I am trying to say is, let me recap it once again. I have just this user context, right? So I am providing a new value. Basically I am overriding the default value of my context. This is how you modify it. Suppose, and you know, you have to see it very clearly. You have to see it very, very, very clearly that this context provider, I have wrapped my whole app inside this user context provider. That is why everywhere the logged in user is my Akshay Saini. Suppose if I have wrapped just my header, right? Suppose if I wrap just my header with this, right? I am just wrapping my header component with this, right? Let me just show it to you. Suppose, right? Suppose I am just wrapping my, oh my God, where is my header? This is my header. I want to just see this. Only my header component is wrapped inside this. So what do you think will happen? Only my header component. So this new value, this Akshay Saini, will only be present inside my header, and all the other places, what will be there? You can guess it. The default value. Amazing, right? See this. So Akshay Saini is in the header. All the other value, default value. If I go back to my home, we have this default value. Got it? So basically, if I use my provider for a specific portion, I can do that too. This is the power of context. That context is a global space. I can provide to whole app or just a small portion of our app. I can create multiple context. I can create a new context for header. I can create a new context somewhere else. Got it? And I can override anywhere I want to. This is such a superpower, and it is very much performant. React takes care of all the performance over here. It is performant, my dear friends. It is performant, right? So this is how you provide it. Generally, what we do is, when you have to access something all across our app. We just wrap our whole app, right? I will just encapsulate, I will just put this around my whole application, right? So that whole application can use it, right? Whole application can use it, right? Now, everywhere in my app, wherever I am using user context, the data will be this new data that I passed in. Got it? Hope you would have understood it. Now, I have a homework for you. Can I have user context here? What if, can I wrap my header in another user context? Right? Can I app another user context provider? Right? Can I do this? Can I have nested providers? Can I change the value? What if I change the value over here? Amazing, right? So the default value was something else. And maybe let's give it Elon Musk, right? What do you think the output will be? I have given a default. See, the default value of that user context was default user, right? What I have done is, to my whole app, I have given another value, Akshay Saini, and just my header, we have given Elon Musk. What will happen in this case? Is it correct, first of all, or not? Is it correct or not? This is a question. A lot of React developers who are using context, they don't know about all this. They have not seen this. They have not used it enough. This is a very extremely powerful thing. You should understand what will happen like this. This is perfectly valid code. And now, if you can think of what the output will be, the header will use Elon Musk. All the other places we will use username, right? This Akshay Saini. And suppose if we had something outside of it also, right? Outside of it, there it would use, over here it will have default value, right? Outside of this context, it has default value. Inside over here, it will have Akshay Saini, right? It will have Akshay Saini, right? Over here. And inside of this provider, it will have Elon Musk. Amazing, right? The value will be Elon Musk. So if you will see now, my header will have Elon Musk. See this. Our header will have Elon Musk. All the other places it is Akshay Saini. Got it? Amazing, right? Nobody will tell you this. I'm telling you. This is a dive deep into context. And we are in the episode 11. Data is the new oil. And if you know how to contain data, then your UI layer will be very good. Right? So React application is built of UI layer and a data layer. Make sure your data layer is very, very strong. Your fundamentals are very strong. Practice this as much as you can. Oh my God. It is giving me current, right? There is a current inside my mic. I think there is some problem with the wires. I'll check it. Oh my God. Anyways, right? Let's get back our focus, right? It was a very, very bad electric shock. Yes. So what I was telling was, let me not touch this, right? What I was telling was, it depends on where you have provided your user context. Got it? If you don't provide it anywhere, it will take the default value. If you will wrap your application inside the user provider, right? User context.provider, it will take the specific value from there. Right? So for now, let's wrap the whole app inside our user context.provider and we can do this. Now, let me show you another important superpower of context, right? Let's try to modify our user context, right? Let's try to update it. How will I update it? Let me go to my home page, right? Let's go to the home. Suppose if there is next to this top rated restaurant, let's create an input box. And let's try to modify our username with input box, right? Let's create I'll show you, right? It will be very fun, right? I will show you a very interesting thing, right? You will just snatch your hairs. You will pull your hairs when you'll see this, right? It is so amazing, right? It's so amazing, I'm telling you. Body, let's go to body component. In the body component, I have this top rated restaurant button, right? Where is that top rated restaurant button? Here is this top rated restaurant button, right? It is wrapped inside a div, right? This is a div, right? Let me create another div just next to this. Let me get rid of this top rated restaurant button. Let me create an input box, right? Let me create an input box over here, right? In this input box, where is the input box? Yep, here is the input box. Let me give it some CSS. Let me give it some CSS to make it visible also, right? Let me give it border and border black, right? Border black. Cool. So we have this input box and this input box, and let me give it a label also, LABEL label, right? Let me give it a label and let's call it as username, right? Username. And let's try to, so this is the username, right? This is the username. Now what I will do is, whenever I want to like edit this, and if I edit this, I want whatever I write this to update my context with the same data, right? Live. And I want to do it live. So suppose if I am changing, if I am writing over here, maybe Sachin Tendulkar, right? Sachin Tendulkar. So what happens is my context data should change. My user context data should change, right? Let me give it some padding, right? It's sticking, right? This S is sticking to this bottom, right? Let me give it some padding to this input box. I don't know. I don't want it to look ugly, right? Padding of 2, right? Cool. Now it's good, right? So if I write Sachin Tendulkar over here, right? If I write Sachin Tendulkar, it should update my context, right? How will I do that? How will I update my context? Let me just show it. Now, if you will see in your app.js, in my app.js, the data is coming from here, right? Whatever the data everybody is accessing, this Akshay Saini, this is coming from this value. How can I update this value? How can I update this value? I somehow will have to update my this logged in user, and this logged in user is username, right? So basically I have to update my username from that input box. How will I update my username from that input box? How can I? So basically, let me ask you a question. How can I even update this username? Now you can say, I can update it using set username, right? I can update it using set username. How can I update? How can I call this set username from that input box, right? From that body component. How? Because I can pass this set username also over here. Let me pass this set username function also over here, right? I have passed in my set username function here. Now, just like I access my logged in user from here, right? I access my logged in user from here, right? Right? I access this logged in user from my place, right? Where? In my header. Where is my header? Header, right? I logged in, right? I have used logged in user from use context. I can also extract my set username using the same way as I did logged in user, right? So in my body component, suppose if I want set username, right? If I want that set username, I can access it exactly the same way, right? How? I will first of all import my use context, right? Use context from React, right? Use context, right? Basically, you know what I have done is basically in the context, right? In the context, I have also put in this function to modify itself, kind of in a way, right? I have kind of set up a trap where I can modify this logged in user and I'm passing this inside context, right? So that I have access to this everywhere, right? And in my body component, I am just getting this context, and let me also import my user context from here, right? User context. How will I get that set? How will I get that set method, right? How will I get that set method? Set username from my use context, right? From my use context, and what context? User context. So I'll get my set username. Now what I have to do is I have to change my username on change of my input, right? Let me just collapse all of this, right? It is very cluttery. It is very cluttery. Where is my input box? Yes, this is my input box, right? So over here, right? The value is, so first of all, on change, I have to set my username, right? It will call a callback function and it will set my username with the value, right? Value is basically event, right? e.target.value, right? e.target.value. And what should be the value of this input box? What should be the value of this input box? This value should be the username, right? This value should be the username. And where will I get logged in user, right? Logged in user. Right? And where will I get my logged in user from? I will get my logged in user also from here, right? I will get my logged in user also from here. So basically, now my input box has the value logged in user. And when I change it, it will just set that value once again. Right? Let me just show you and let us see if it works or not. Let me go back to browser. So right now, this input value is Akshay Saini. And if I try to change it, right? If I try to change it, see this. Do you see this changing? This is Akshay and we have changed the user context. And everywhere in my app, wherever I am using logged in user, it is changing. Isn't it amazing? Isn't this amazing, my dear friends? Listen to me carefully once again. So here we are using the logged in user value. As soon as I am changing the username and it is automatically changing its value everywhere, wherever I am using my username, right? Logged in user. See this on the header. Now, as soon as I'm changing it, right? It is changing it, right? It's empty. Now let me write Sachin Tendulkar. And it is happening on the live, on the fly. How cool this is. Amazing, right? And React is doing it in a very performant way. Anywhere in your app. See, all these cards, right? All these cards are re-rendering. See this. On change of it, all these cards are re-rendering on the fly. Wherever we are using user context, everywhere that logged in user is getting updated now. This is the beauty of React, my dear friends. This is the beauty of React. And another important thing I would like to say, is that it is not just changing in the same page. It is also changing in the page about us. If I go to my about us, see this. Sachin Tendulkar is here. Sachin Tendulkar is here, my dear friends. I was changing it from home and it has changed in About Us page also. And let me remind you one important thing. Where is that About Us page? If I go to About Us page, do you know how About Us page is coming? This About Us page is coming via lazy loading. So, do you understand the power of context? Did you understand the power of context? Let me just tell you the power of context, right? Right now, you remember that episode, right? Where I showed you, there was one episode optimizing the app where I showed you lazy loading. So basically, when I load the home page, right now, in my page, right? If I go to JS files, right? In my page, this JS file, we don't even have the code for About Us page. Right now, we don't even have the code for About Us page. When I click on this About Us page, then I will get the code of About Us page. See this. When I click on this, then I got the code of About Us page. But still, the change that we made in the home page, right? Suppose, see, right now, the context value is Akshay Saini, right? And let me change it to Sachin Tendulkar. Right? And everywhere this value is Sachin Tendulkar, right? And the code of About Us is not even there, right? The code of About Us is not even there. When I click on it, the code of About Us comes and the value is still updated. See this power of context. Do you understand this power of context? The code of about us was not even there. Still, we can access context, right? Context is a global space, and I am trying to update that global global scope, right? Global place. And when this global place and when this about us component loads, it fetches from the global space, and by that time, the value of it is Sachin Tendulkar. Amazing, right? So this is the power of context API, right? This is the React context. Read about it. This is a super powerful thing, and this is natively given to us by React. Got it? So this is an important way to manage data inside our application. As I said, user UI layer, data layer. I want to keep my data layer amazing, right? So this is how we mix this UI layer and data layer and make our application very performant, very sane, and very easily readable, right? Our code is readable now. I don't have to do random stuff, right? So we have seen how we can access the user component, user context, right? By user context.consumer. Let me just recap the context thing once again, right? Okay, for everybody. How did we create context? Create context, simple, easy. We gave the default value, isn't it? Create context come from React. How do we use, right? Inside header, we had something known as use context. Use context is a hook. It takes in user context, right? And this is how we extract it. How do I do this? How do I read the values inside the inside what you'll say class-based components, right? What was that? User context.consumer. Yes, user context.consumer. Let me go back to about us page. We use user context.consumer. Remember this, right? It takes a function, right? It takes a callback function, and this callback function gives you the access to your context, right? And you have to wrap it inside your user context.consumer. Got it? You have to access it like this. User context.consumer. Can I use it multiple times? Right? Another question. Find it out yourself, right? This is a homework for you. Find it out yourself. Can I use it multiple times? Yes, definitely you can, right? The answer is yes. What to find it out? Let me just show it to you right away. You can use it anytime you want to. You can use it anytime you want to, right? See this, Sachin Tendulkar twice. Got it? So you can use it anytime. It is very, very flexible. Very, very flexible. Right? So this is what it is. And then what did we see? Suppose if I want to modify our context, let's go to app.js. I can just pass in like this, right? User context.provider, and whatever value did we provide, that value will be provided to anywhere we are using the context in my app. So basically this is overriding the default value. This is how you override the default value. Now what did we do? We did a smart thing. We created a local state variable, and now I have tied. So basically I have binded my user context with this state variable. So every time my state variable changes, my user context changes. See, I have tied this user context. See, this is the state variable, right? And we have this user context in a central way. This is a user context, right? I have my state variable. I have tied my user context and state variable. Now, whenever my state variable changes, my global state changes, and everywhere in my app, data changes, right? So this is how you do that. And you can pass in the set username also. So basically anywhere in my app, now I can access my set username. I can access my logged in user. So I can do a read write on my context anywhere I want to, right? This is how you do it. Isn't it amazing? This context is a very powerful thing in React. If you are building a small sized and a mid-size app, you can do a lot of things using context. You don't have to have any other data management library. What do I mean by data management library, right? Whenever in the industry, you will see that a lot of people talk about something known as data management libraries, which are known as state management libraries, like Redux, right? You must have heard of Redux. You would have been very excited to learn Redux. And in Namaste React, I will also teach you Redux, right? And I will teach you Redux and the new way of writing Redux, that is Redux Toolkit. I will teach you Redux Toolkit, right? I will teach you, don't worry. In the next episode, I'm going to teach you Redux. But knowing Redux does not mean that you should not know how to manage data inside our application using context. right? When we will use Redux, we will not need a context inside React, right? We will be using Redux to do the same thing. Redux also creates a store, and that's a central store, and we can access it from anywhere inside our application. That is a job of Redux, right? But an important interview question is, what is the difference between a context and Redux store? And Redux is a state management library, right? It's an external library. It is not inside React. It is not inside React. Redux is something which comes out of the box. We'll have to do a npm install Redux to get it. Got it? So we will do that in the next session. But what I want to say, if you are building a small application, if you are building a medium-sized application, you don't even need Redux. A lot of people don't understand this. They want to build a small application, they get in Redux. No need. Context is very powerful. But now the question can be, can't you use context in large scale application? You can. You can build any large application using context. You can build very large applications using context without using Redux also. But Redux gives you, but you know what has happened? In our industry, Redux has become a common pattern, right? So Redux work in a different way, right? And Redux is scalable, right? In a way when this data, right? So if you have to do it like this, right? In your context, you will have to create different contexts for different type of data. Suppose we have card data, right? That we need access from anywhere in our app. Suppose if we had a card data, right? That we need it anywhere in our app. We can create a card context. We can create a user context. We can create a UI context. We can create a theme context, right? So we can create different type of context and we can build a large scale application also. But a lot of people prefer to use Redux. That is why I'm teaching you. My plan was not to teach you Redux in this Namaste React, but because of a lot of your lot of the requests from you all, I have bought in Redux, so I will be teaching you Redux in the next episode, right? But that does not mean you should not know context. Context is a super powerful thing. Try to use context as much as you can. If you are building a small or a mid-size application, context scales very well. After certain time, right, when your application becomes very huge, then Redux comes into picture, right? Then you can leverage the power of Redux. What extra Redux offers is, Redux offers you Redux. There is something known as, right, Redux thunks. It has middlewares and a lot of other extra complex stuff, right? But when you're building a normal app, you can directly build it using context. This is the last thing I wanted to tell you, right? And what I am trying to say is state management, data management, and at the end of the day, the React application is built using UI layer and data layer. Keep your data layer very strong. If you have the data layer strong, the UI layer automatically becomes strong and and your application becomes very good. Right? So this is what I wanted to cover in this episode. In the next episode, we'll dive into Redux Toolkit, and we will see what is RTK, what is Redux Toolkit, and we will explore a lot of amazing cool things. Right? So this was it, and I'll get you started with Redux in the next episode, but try to experiment this. Take a break, right? And try to do whatever I have shown you. Try to do this. Try to play with context. Try to make a lot of apps and build it cool, right? Build this whole amazing things inside your React application, and hope you would have enjoyed this session. This session was extremely content heavy, knowledge heavy, and hope you would have enjoyed it. And thank you so much for watching. That's all in this video. In the next video, we'll see Redux, and thank you once again for watching.